Sword of Coming Chapter 997. The scenery of Jiling Peak Bamboo Tower is indeed beautiful. Back then the bamboo tower was built here, and guests who have enjoyed the scenery here say that Xianxia is unique. Flocks of orioles in the mountains just sing, and the flying clouds outside the cliffs are like spring, and they turn into dragons and snakes face to face with people. Xiao said, when Mr. Jing returns to his hometown, it will be even more lively. Qin Pingon laughed for no reason. Zheng Dafeng said that my generation of scholars are reading old books, such as being small is better than a new marriage. Xiao Mo nodded and said, Mr. Zheng is a very talented and learned man. He is a man of learning who pretends to be eloquent. He is naturally different from a hypocrite who pretends to be a Taoist. Qin Pingon said, the last time I went to the liquor store in Feishing City, the old customers I met all said that Mr. Zheng's dirty words could serve the wine, and I, the second shopkeeper, were far away. Xiao Mo smiled and said, Mr. Zheng is open-minded, affectionate and righteous, but uninhibited. He is welcome wherever he goes. Walk with me. Qin Pingon threw a jug of wine to Xiao Mo, and the two of them carried the jug together and went to the top of the mountain, drinking while walking. The mountain protection formations of a top sect are often stacked formations, which complement each other and are blessed by layers, so they must be both offensive and defensive. Luopao Mountain now has two mountain protection formations, one of which belongs to the sword formation that has been pieced together one after another. Blessed by misfortune, Lao Guanju was a guest at Luopao Mountain and drank tea at the entrance of the mountain. It is estimated that he originally wanted to ask Luobaishan Xingshi to ask for guilt. Because of Qin Lingjun's rude words in the town, this never-forgiving Luobao, the master of Tanbixiao, didn't care about anything with a little nascent soul water snake, so he had no choice but to use the mountain master Qin Pingon. There is no need to doubt the methods of the old master, let alone the courage of this great monk of the 14th realm. Invincible from the whole, able to forgive others but not forgiving, is never a compliment. Back then when Xiaoma fled into Luobaotan by Jing, who acted domineeringly like Jianxiu, also needed to take the initiative to stop. It's just that without thinking about it, the old Guanju sent a picture of the true shape of the 5 sacred mountains instead. So that Wei Bo, who is Shanjun, wants to visit Luopao Mountain now, but it is only a few steps away, but he needs a customs clearance letter, to not be so sloppy. No wonder Wei Shanjun couldn't help but joke with Xiaomi Mili when he was depressed, it was the most valuable bowl of tea in the world. This is not true at all. Not only did Lao Guanju not wear small shoes for Qin Pingon, but he sent a real picture of the ancestors' level. Isn't it equal to 2 immortal soldiers? In the old mountain temple on the top of the mountain, there is a picture of the sword fairy brought back by Qin Pingon from the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Qin Pingon knows her temper best and she can't beat her. Walking to the top of the mountain, Xiao Mo said with emotion, Young master, it's really hard to come by for Luopa Mountain to have today's atmosphere. Qin Pingon boasted to himself, it's definitely a matter of diligence and thrift to keep a family. Taiping Shan once gave Qin Pingon a map in the early years. Luopaishan has always suffered from not having a suitable flying sword, so that in the past few years, Qin Pingon has been attacking the idea of hating the sword mountain in Beiju Luzhou. Fortunately, the last time I traveled to the wild hinterland, I passed by the Yuban city of the Yunwen dynasty. As a rising star and a master of Baozhai, the young hidden officer once again carried forward the tenet of my generation. Thieves don't leave empty, just close when they see it. From the Taoist name Dubu, an Emperor Yi Pu, who is a wild and brand new ascension realm, got 12 flying swords, and the coral penholder used to put the flying swords. Qin Pingon took the former into his pocket and the latter took come and do a long-term business with Lu Qin. In this way the Taiping Mountain array is just matched with the 12 flying swords, which can be said to be seamless. The last time Tongyi's Hao held the next sect celebration, Lu Jinglong, as Qin Ping's best drinking friend, of course had to watch the Qingping Jianzong completion ceremony. He took his disciple Bai Shou and left Taihui Jianzong. On the way south, according to Qin Pinggan's request, Lu Jinglong first went to the capital of Dali to instruct Han Zhoujin, a formation master of the Earth branch, in his practice. The guy who is accustomed to throwing his hands at the shopkeeper has made a icing on the cake for the mirror images of the sword fairy heroes in the picture scroll who only have sword intent and no spiritual wisdom. The array map is used as the foundation of the dojo. 12 swordsmen and heroic spirits are selected, and their respective flying swords with similar kendos are selected, and they hold 12 flying swords, so that this attacking formation finally tends to be complete in a true sense. From the previous estimation by Qin Pingon of can kill Yupu and shock immortals, it has been upgraded to can seriously injure an immortal who did not know beforehand. As for the Ascension Realm Cultivator, don't come here to wander around and shake the prestige. Once you enter the Aquarius continent, you need to take the initiative to report the whereabouts with Dali imitating by Yujing. Besides, is there really no Ascension Realm in Luobao Mountain? It really irritated Lord Qin Shanju, but he really didn't talk about the morality of the rivers and lakes, and opened the door and closed the door to let the dog go. In addition, Wei Bo sneaked around the Dali court and did not report to the Dali rights and records at all, so he directly opened the door for this sword formation, and enabled those sword-wielding heroes to freely travel to and from most of the Beiyue realm. Seeing that at the entrance of Piyun Mountain Jing Dafeng and Wei Bo were communicating with each other, Xiao Mo joked, "We Wei Shanjun are typical good people with good rewards." After giving out the wooden box, Jing Dafeng and Wei Bo seemed to be hanging on each other's shoulders, but in fact they forced Wei Shanjun to climb the mountain together and went to drink at the Yufusi, which had the most virgin officials. As for whether Wei Shanjun will remind the officials of the UFU department in advance, and let them be careful about Jing Dafeng, it is unknown. Xiao Mo remembered something. I don't know where Xiego heard the news that Wu Shanjun of Aquarius continent might get the seal of the Confucian temple. Son, is this true? Qin Pingon shook his head and said, "It's really not clear. Brother Mao didn't mention this in the letter. I'll ask the Confucian temple when I look back." Nowadays, there is indeed an unconfirmed rumor in the vast world. It seems that the former lord of the 5 sacred mountains of the Great Li Kingdom, and now the lord of the 5 sacred mountains in Aquarius, may have the god title. As for who will be the abbot of the ceremony, it stands to reason that at least one should be the deputy leader of the Confucian temple, but it is very likely that when Xing came to Aquarius in person. If this is the case, then for Wei Bo, Jin Qing and Fan Junmao, the honorable title of the Confucian temple is not only an honor, but also a real benefit. Biezhou Cultivator has almost nothing strange to say about this matter. After all, Aquarius can deserve this treatment. At most, it is a joke. At the same time, Beiyue Weibo's divine name must be the Night Tour. Beiyue Weibo, with a pure golden body, was the first mountain monarch in the history of Aquarius Island to ascend to the 5 realms. Later, the height of his golden body was improved, and his cultivation realm was equivalent to a fairyland. Senior brother Zhou Xian used to sit in Luopao Mountain back then and punch the enemy to meet the enemy. He once caused several golden rains to fall on the Beiyue boundary, and Wei Bo benefited a lot. If Wei Bo can raise the height of his golden body again with the thank you gift from Ning Yao, the first mountain in the 5 realms of Aquarius Island, the first fairy realm and the first mountain equivalent to the Ascension realm, this can be it is the Lianzhong Sanyuan in the history of Izhou's landscape and officialdom. Because the gods are almost immortal, then Shanjun Wei Bo will become a veritable one who has never been seen before or since. Before Qin Pingon, a young hidden official, was born, the immortal mansion on the Aquarius Mountain and the chapels of various countries reached a consensus that the bottleneck of the cultivation realm depends on the current 3 immortal realm. Their final height is to stop here or go further. Jianxiu, let's see if Wei Jin, the Wind Snow Temple, which is already the Great Sword Immortal, can enter the Ascension realm. The gods of the mountains and rivers must look at Wei Bo of Piyun Mountain, Yexiu of Xianxia, and Lu Laoqing of Shujian Lake. The 3 of them are the leaders who are at the forefront of their respective paths. These 3 roads are as if someone has already taken the lead in walking in the front, and the people behind only need to follow, and do not expect to be able to catch up, walk side by side, let alone catch up. Inch copy Xuanda Xian marriage copy rotation umbrella standing on the edge of the cliff, Qin Pingon said softly. We all like to say such idioms as being condescending and building a high house. If the sea level is used as a ruler, the height of the land is higher in the northwest and lower in the southeast. In addition, the sea level is actually there is a subtle inclination and the magnitude is only small, but this matter is never recorded in the book and ordinary monks have no way of knowing it, and it is even more difficult to accurately measure. In Beipingzu, the topography of the land map is even more obvious that the north is high and the south is low. This is a common sense known on the mountain, so as a mountain king of Izhou, Fan Junmao is at a disadvantage. The reason why everyone thinks that Weibo is the most promising to become the first mountain and water whose golden body height is equivalent to the Ascension realm is not only that Weibo has an irresistible relationship with the Delisong clan, occupying Ren but also this Piyun mountain which has the most geographical advantage, is the mountain with the highest altitude on the entire Aquarius continent. When Qin Pingon said this he wrapped his arms around his sleeves and raised his head, so this mountain is the closest to the sky. For the first time, Qin Pingon understood the value of gold and copper coins, and it was also due to the showing off of Fu Nanhua, an old dragon city. He used an ancient poem of unknown origin to describe this kind of fairy money. The water is clear or can be harvested, and the gold essence is not to be discussed. For the thank you gift from Ning Yao, Zheng Dafeng had already passed Qin Pingon before he went to Piyun Mountain to find Wei Bo. Ning Yao asked Zheng Dafeng to tell Qin Pingon 3 words. This is a gift I prepared for Pai Yunshan long ago. You and Luopeishan can't always owe Wei Boss favor. People don't care about it. It's not the reason why you, the mountain owner, don't care. This thing is much more valuable than gold refined copper coins, but you are the most unsuitable for refining this thing and giving it to Wei Bo, but it's just the right kind of charcoal in the snow. Wei Boss character will only take care of Luopeishan more. Just send it, don't feel bad, anyway I will collect more gold and copper coins in the colorful world. This is the consistent style of Ning Yao's life. It is also a common habit that Qin Pingon has always adhered to since he knew her. If you have something to say directly, no matter it is a big or small matter, you would rather quarrel on the spot and make the other party unhappy, and never leave the slightest room for misunderstanding. Therefore, on the side of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, no matter what choice, Qin Pingon never concealed anything from Ning Yao. Facts have proved that this is the best way for him and Ning Yao to get along. Qin Pingan's face was full of pride, and he roughly repeated Ning Yao's words to Xiao Mo. Xiao Mo said with sincere admiration, Mrs. Shanju, she is really a good helper who is hard to find even with a lantern. Qin Pingon stretched out his sleeves, rubbed his chin, suddenly turned his head to look at Xiao Mo, and said with a sincere expression, Xiao Mo, don't participate in the next night tour banquet, don't join in this kind of fun, it's just booing and drinking, it doesn't make any sense. Xiao Mo snorted and Qin Pingon just breathed a sigh of relief, but Xiao Mo said, then I'll ask you to help me bring the congratulations. Qin Pingon has no choice but to treat people with sincerity, but it doesn't mean that you, Xiao Mo, are too sincere. Xiao Mo immediately changed the subject and asked, Master, how's your boxing practice under the tree? Qin Pingon said, it's not difficult to break through the realm recently, but there are a lot of places that need to be grounded and repaired. After becoming a martial artist in the 5 realms, there is still a lot to grind. Xiao Mo smiled and said, under the tree the heart is mellow, the stamina is strong, and the young master personally instructs the boxing method. Martial arts can definitely go a long way. Now that he talked about martial arts, Qin Pingon asked curiously, Xiao Mo, in those ancient times when the years were so prosperous, who could break up the cause and effect and fate of an earth immortal with boxing alone? To be precise, it's the kind of complete emptiness, not just the disappearance of the soul. Xiao Mo has always thought carefully, so he didn't rush to give an answer and instead asked, young master's meaning is just to drive the bodhi's muscles and bones, without using the slightest spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and simply use brute force, which is the so-called martial arts of later generations, to kill a person. Earth immortal, make it no longer in the afterlife and completely soulitize? Qin Pingon nodded and said, almost. It turns out that the earliest original meaning of Bingjie means this? Xiao Mo thought for a while and said slowly, the 10 nobles in the ancient world, including the patriarch of the 3 sects, aside from talking about it, fellow Taoist Bixiao can easily do it, and the first few scholars who followed the patriarch of the Holy Spirit also not bad, plus the nameless person who woke up with me in Beijing this time, he also followed a few squires of about the same number in his early years, and his fists and feet were not light. Some. Qin Pingon was surprised. So many? Xiao Mo smiled and said, if you add the demon clan who were born in the primordial era, there will be even more. It's just that they often don't show up easily because after there are many swordsmen in the world, they like to trouble them the most. Xiao Mo hesitated for a moment and said, for example, Mr. Zhou Xian's senior brother, he was born in a miraculous and extraordinary way. The sun, the moon, and the fluttering of wings only hate the avenues of low blue sky. If Mr. Zhou Xian hadn't been dragged by the Buddha to discuss Taoism, infused with the nature of Buddhism and slightly changed his temperament, I estimate that in the ancient times of later generations, Mr. Zheng of Beidacheng's that preacher, he didn't even have a chance to kill a dragon. Xiaomo continued, Master, I have a guess. Qin Pingon smiled and said, but it doesn't matter. Xiaomo said, I guess the reason why the real dragons in the world rebelled out of the heaven back then was most likely that Mr. Zhou Xian secretly made a promise with all the Dragon Palace Water clan through the Buddha, similar to the contract not to hurt the dragon and Narcissus. Qin Pingon nodded. It should be the truth. Qin Pingon suddenly asked, Xiaomo, according to the speculation on the mountain today, the 11 levels of martial arts can be roughly regarded as the 14 levels of Qi practitioners. Are you accurate? On the Taiping mountainside, Qin Pingon received a punch from a certain 11-level martial artist because of the gift of his great disciple. At that time Qin Pingon, who was already in the top 10, could only stand up obediently and be beaten in the face of that half-punch, not to mention fighting back. Later, after knowing the truth of the half-punch for no reason, Qin Pingon was both funny and angry, but he could only eat Huanglian as a mute. After all, how could he be willing to teach Pei Qian half a sentence? What's more, Pei Qian was very thoughtful since he was a child, and Qin Pingon didn't plan to talk to her about this, lest she think too much. If a proud student was the culprit, Qin Pingon would not have to tie the neck of this big white goose. Xiaomo shook his head and said, I don't know. You can ask Bai Jing about this. Today Qin Ping's concentrated practice is nothing more than 3 things. Practicing swords, practicing boxing, drawing talismans. In the process of refining swords, it is mainly the natal supernatural powers of the 2 flying swords, Sparrow in the Cage and Iguchi Moon. Qin Pingon tried to refine a long river of time in which the avenue runs in an orderly manner, making the small world more truth. As the martial arts climbed, it became more boring. Qin Pingon went back and forth and only practiced half a fist. The weird, 11th realm fist on the top of the mountain is like a supreme boxing score. It was divided into 2 parts, and half of the slaughtered immortal was the first ancestor of the military family who sat in Ing who had deliberately left the skin of Han Yushu. The other half, in the mountains and rivers of Qin Ping's own world, is equivalent to a half-punch. The mountains and rivers in the small world shake and the mountains and rivers reroute. Every trace left is the way of fist. As for drawing the talisman, it takes a lot of time. Qin Pingon seems to be distracted. In fact, by studying the talisman, it is Qin Pingan's key hand to complement the existence of a series of ferry crossings and ferry passengers in the long river. Qin Pingon smiled and invited, Let's go show you some of my collections and how I practice. Xiaomo had been looking forward to this for a long time, so he said, It's better to be respectful than to obey. Shrink the mountains and rivers with Xiaomo and return to the bamboo building. Qin Pingon took the lead in stepping into the first floor of the bamboo building, which was not closed, and ripples appeared. Xiaomo followed closely. The sky and the earth are vast and boundless as far as the eye can see. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, Do I need to change the scene? I can directly move to a town demon building or even Suishan, even to a mountain enough to be fake. Xiaomo smiled and shook his head, Young master, you only need a futon. Qin Pingon pointed to Xiaomo and joked, This is where you are inferior to the old cook and Pei Qian. As they spoke, a futon made in secret from Beiju Luzhou Saburo Temple appeared behind the 2 of them. Xiaomo sat cross-legged and said with a face, There are some talents, if you can't learn it, you can't learn it. In Taiping Mountain Tonggishao I met Han Yushu, the sect master of Wanyao sect, on a narrow road. At that time he was tricked by me. He was punched in vain. At least half of this immortal cultivator's possessions, including his life, were beaten into powder. Failed to leave more treasures. However, Han Yushu's morality and spiritual energy are all integrated into this picture of mountains and rivers. Qin Pingon took out an ancient scroll painting from his sleeve, hovered in front of him, touched the white jade shaft with his finger, and there was an ancient ink painting of mountains and rivers. The 5 mountains and 9 rivers and 8 rivers are signed, Mr. 3 Mountains and 9 Hours. Qin Pingon shook his sleeves again and plucked out several treasures of Wan Yaozong's hidden treasures, one by one hanging in front of him. A magic sword Xianxia, a ceremonial vessel, Yundun hidden with the puppet of an ancient god, and a purple gourd that can warm the true fire of samadhi. In fact, there are also two basic landscape charms from Wanyao Zhongzhu Mountain, which are only passed down from generation to generation in the hands of the suzerain, and are not kept secret. Xiao Emo smiled and said, "For an immortal, sect Master Han is very wealthy." Qin Pingon nodded and said, "This is the background of the time-honored Zhongmen." Qin Pingon pointed to the painting of mountains and rivers. This painting is Wan Yaozong's mountain protection formation, and it is also Han Yushu's trump card. He must be older than Wan Yaozong. The founder of Wan Yaozong was a young woodcutter from Tonggishao. He entered the Blessed Land by mistake and obtained this ancient picture scroll of the same age as the Sanshan Blessed Land, and then he was able to embark on the path of cultivation. It is said that Wan Yaozong was the most prosperous. At that time, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and all kinds of luck occupied half of the Blessed Land. It was just that when the ancestor wanted to go further, he failed in retreat and failed to enter the 14th realm. All the luck will be returned to the Blessed Land. As a result, Qin Pingon found Xiao Mo's interest only on the Taoist ritual vessel and asked with a smile, "No. This Taoist ritual vessel Yunao, known as Yundan in ancient times, is imitated from the gods used by ancient gods to travel through clouds and mists. According to the saying on the mountain, the clouds in the sky and the earth have cloud roots, and the rain has rain feet. There is a family in Baiyunsheng and there is a family in the depths of Baiyun, just a word difference, there is a world of difference. The former is undoubtedly a true immortal who has accomplished Taoism, while the latter may be just a hermit." In later generations, Yunao was mostly in the shape of a small gong. The one in front of me is a tall wooden frame, made of pine mingzi, a 10,000-year-old ancient wood with a small mallet attached to it. Xiao Emo nodded and said, "I have looked up a few times before. The ancient Yunshi priest driving 5-color cloud carts, driving 6 dragons, riding the wind, entering and leaving the gate of heaven, crossing 3 mountains and 4 seas and 5 lakes. There is Kyushu under Qinyun Road." Qin Pingon waved his sleeves and the pocket-sized cloud pad, which was the size of a slap, suddenly became as tall as a person and the surrounding clouds rose. An obscure old saying, there are words in recitation: "The palace of the cloud forest, the true immortal descends, the scene of the candle is empty, the spirit of the wind is fragrant, the gods are happy." After a while there was no vision and Qin Pingon put the mallet back on the wooden frame and said with a smile, "These more than 100 character mantras are copied from Han Yushu and they are not wrong. Logically there are no omissions. But he can command a goddess of heaven. I can't do it, I can't ask God." As for the meaning of the old sayings, Qin Pingon asked Cui Dongshan for advice afterwards and learned that Jiang Shangzhen, who asked first, didn't know after asking 3 questions, but Chief Zhou asked Qin Pingon how the goddess looked. Xiao Emo smiled and said, "Master, why don't I try it?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "Just feel free to be polite to me." Xiaoma knows ancient language. Before on Fengyuan Ferry, Xiaoma taught the children Chai Wu by Xian and King Sun Cheng the ancient secret arts and Taoism, and the two sides communicated in ancient words. But Qin Pingon really doesn't believe that Xiao Mo Yu, a sword cultivator, can knock out a flower. As a result, Xiao Mo was also walking on the clouds, chanting those ancient mantras, and in an instant, a golden cloud condensed into a sea of golden clouds, from which he opened a pair of golden eyes, overlooking the earth. Xiao Mo immediately stopped, the sea of clouds gradually dissipated, and the owner of the pair of golden eyes turned into a pure spirit and returned to the world. Qin Pingon immediately noticed the difference and said suspiciously, "The mantra I recite has 6 syllables which are different from yours. So why is it that I ask God to be ineffective?" Xiao Mo smiled as if he was certain that his son could figure out the mystery, and he didn't need to explain himself. Qin Pingon knew immediately that Han Yushu deliberately made a few key syllables wrong. In the content of just over 100 words, Han Yushu misread 6 words. There is no other explanation for this ratio, except for the kind of deliberately tricking people with sinister intentions. But if you only think about this layer, then Qin Pingon's all corners of the world will be gone for nothing. In ancient sacrificial texts, the words are like gold and one word cannot be wrong. If this is the case, then Han Yushu can still invite the ancient priest. It must be because of some kind of heart or according to some ancient ritual system, which is similar to the belly of the belly. Light the heart incense, sing and worship God. Sure enough, Xiaomo then taught Qin Pingon an ancient ritual that matched the mantra. He chose 9 qi palaces, and the spiritual energy rose, like lighting an incense, and the incense curled directly to the heaven when reciting. At the same time, the spiritual energy tapped along the way. The walls and roads of the Qi mansion were drumming and kowtowing respectively. If it wasn't for this true inheritance, Qin Pingon would probably not be able to successfully please the gods to return, even if he beat Yunao here for hundreds of thousands of years. Xiaomo said, if it wasn't for the master himself who was so miraculous, he would replace it with an ordinary earthly cultivator, imitating sect master Han to ring the cloud tower. Qin Pingon was horrified and silent for a moment. I was careless. This is the sequelae after temporarily borrowing the 14-realm Dao Fa with Lu Chen. Climbing to the top makes the world small. Once the vision is high, the cultivator will have a wide-open mood. Naturally, this move has advantages and disadvantages. Lu Chen once used 2 analogies to describe the great cultivator's ascent in the world. Tiandi pills are large pieces, let me turn the hammer. Plant a tree on the top of the mountain and hang a book on the tree. But in fact, when Qin Pingon was alone, he mostly used the extremely tough Yunao to occasionally practice the magic drum beating style. Therefore, beating Yunao in the heaven and earth here is used by Qin Pingon as a kind of distraction. Xiaomo began to explain why he stopped. Sir, I am a sword cultivator and I have no desire to pray. Once the ceremony of asking the gods to come to the truth is completed, I must pay some price as a sacrifice to this Yunbu deity. Taste. Qin Pingon nodded and said, it's easy to ask God to send God off. Afterwards, Qin Pingon's thoughts moved slightly, and Xiaomo saw a female cultivator standing in the air, wearing a purple robe, and the treasure was dazzling like the moon. The woman is alive, lifelike. Qin Pingon asked, she is the direct daughter of Han Yushu. Her name is Han Jiangshu. He is a jade realm. Xiaomo, can you tell if she is a reincarnation of a god? Xiaomo shook his head. Unless I see her real body with my own eyes, I can't be sure. The image of the woman in front of her is, after all, just a phantom of skin and flesh. Xiaomo added, however, the Jiangshu is one of the ancient divine trees, and it is similar to Xenia looking. Since she is Han Yushu's direct daughter, she was born as a sex fairy material on the mountain. The naming thing must not be too casual. I guess she is more likely to be the reincarnation of a god. Qin Pingon waved his sleeves lightly, and with Jing Zongya's tens of thousands of tiny flying swords, he compiled a picture scroll, which was the confrontation between him and the goddess of heaven. An ancient goddess like Yunshi, standing on a white cloud in the heaven and earth created by Han Yushu, Qin Pingon with a narrow knife hanging from his waist, and the goddess Siyun who controls the cloud. Facing each other from afar, he condensed a round of perfect moon with the qi of Wufu Quan, just like the way of the gods against the gods. A cloud tower has a total of 12 gongs and drums hanging, and the goddess beat the drums herself, manifesting 12 cloud seas covered with golden thunder and lightning, with a long golden line between them, and finally an execution platform was constructed. Xiaomo is of course a person who knows goods. This kind of bizarre mirror and water moon has far exceeded the scope of copying and extension techniques on the mountain. The latter is just similar to the previous female cultivator Han Jiangshu. The current picture scroll is a veritable second-class authentic work. In short, the true meaning of the goddess Taoism is a real reveal. It shows that the goddess is fake and everything else is true. Just like the first edition of the book industry, the difference from the original manuscript, the latter can even be more beautiful. Xiaomo thought of a sentence for no reason. His body and mind were free from shackles, but it was incredible. Seeing is believing. The world is called the world. Qin Pingon said, I speculate that the remaining broken golden body of this is equivalent to half the Ascension realm. It is probably the opportunity that Han Yushu is going to use to prove the Dao Ascension. So when I was fighting with me such a killing a resolute cultivator in the immortal realm, only when it comes to how to use this broken god, there is a little hesitation in Dao Xin, and he is not willing to use her to burn jade with me. Young master, I still can't identify her exact identity. The only thing I can be sure of is this forbidden place. Xiaomo calmed down and looked at the thunder pond in the sea of clouds and said, It is one of the ancient execution platforms Hualong Pond, which belongs to the division of Lei Bujan, Kansas. As for why Shi and Yunao fell into the hands of Wan Yaozong at the same time, being able to control the Hualong Pond across borders is a mystery. The division of labor in the heavenly court is very clear, and there is no room for any difference. Why does this happen? It is estimated that we have to find an opportunity to sneak into the blessed land of the three mountains before we can find clues. Hualong Pond. In the past, people from all over the world who passed through the Dragon Gate turned into dragons here, and the punished real dragons who were tortured by cramps and skins fell here. Qin Pingon sat cross-legged, frowned slightly and tapped his thumbs lightly. I remember the first time I traveled to Beiju Luzhou. I once spent 20 pieces of snow in the mural city of Pima Zone to buy a box with 5 pictures of goddesses. The 5 goddesses who had changed from painted murals to line drawings at that time were named Chongshu, Bao Gai, Ganoderma lucidum Chuanguan, and Zhangkan. Among them, the goddess Zhangkan was also called Xianxia. They hold a long golden lotus lantern, hold a treasure cover, hold a Lingji Rui in their arms, birds fly in the flowers, wear armor and hold an axe. They are extremely heroic and they are surrounded by lightning. Qin Pingon had not doubted before that this goddess, who is closely related to Wan Yaozong's Han Yushu Avenue, was born in the city of murals. It just seems that the time is not right. The Pima sect is the next sect of the foreign forces that took root in Beiju Luzhou, and they rushed to the mural city. The founder of Wan Yaozong entered the Sanshan blessed land by mistake, but it was a very early thing. Unless it is a possibility, a certain goddess has cast a blind eye. In fact, she has already left the mural city, but the painted image has cast a secret method and cannot fade. In the past 1,000 years, the 9 goddesses began to choose their respective masters one after another. According to the stalking and tracing of the monks on Luzhou Mountain in Beiju, the 5 goddesses who left the murals, Chuanguan, disappeared and one died in battle. Sword Immortal Baishang personally beheaded, and there were 2 goddesses and the master to solve it together, and this one was suspected by Qin Pingon most likely to be the Yunbu Tianguan who beheaded the goddess, but it didn't match at all because she always existed in Beiju Luzhou's vision because this goddess was the attendant of a monk in the immortal realm. This person who attained the Tao was not a sword cultivator. According to the records from the Summer Palace, she also followed the master to the Great Wall of Sword Qi. In the underground palace of the mural city, the goddess beheaded. Qin Pingon stretched out his hand and raised his arm with the extra narrow knife in his hand. Unsurprisingly, the goddess of Lei Bujankan, commonly known as the fairy staff, ran towards the execution platform fetish in Qin Pingan's hands. As for the narrow knife, it was the white-haired boy who brought it to the Great Wall of Sword Qi from the Qingming Tianxia Suiju Palace in his early years. Qin Pingon nodded, put away the 2 picture scrolls, but left the sea of clouds behind. He let out a sigh of relief, and a vision appeared as if the white clouds were born in the room of immortals boasting. In the Benming water mansion where the water word seal was placed in peace, a green talisman was slowly drawn out. The water transport was strong and pure. When this talisman came out, the water was gleaming and the square was clear. After Qin Pingon sacrificed this talisman, he explained, "It is said that Wan Yaozong used 6 token treasures as a symbol of the monk's status. The suzerain got 3 of them and the rest were divided up by the 3 inner veins. This treasure is the one of the 6 secret talismans of Wan Yaozong's spit is Jiang Talisman." According to the records in the Book of Pills, the magic of the talisman is not on paper, but needs to be integrated with the cultivator Jin Dan and Yuan Ying. For example, on the walls of the Dan room, the stone is inscribed, which is a higher level. Is to set up a monument in the Qi cave house through a Yuan Ying, use Yuanshan to control the illusory, pure green furnace, and write sacrificial texts that are older than Taoist green words. Qi practitioners in a small world carving talismans on stone, erecting monuments and chronicles, can be regarded as the true meaning of ancient talismans. The talisman drawn in this way is considered to be a cultivator's own property, uniquely created by heaven and earth and not far from the Tao. Therefore, Qin Pingon never felt that he had entered the room together with Fu Lu, and he was still far from it. Bai Yujing enshrines several great classics known as the foundation of the Tao, one of which is called Shuofu, but it is not as famous as Lu Chen's Huang Ting, and is not widely circulated. The authentic Book of Pills, that Li Shixing presented to Qin Pingon is like a carefully cut abbreviated version of said fu. I know it's a good thing, but I've never dared to refine this talisman. I was afraid that Han Yushu would be unpredictable and move his hands and feet early, or he had ulterior motives. Zhang Zuxian's talisman is refined for the opponent. Qin Pingon said, through evolution and dismantling and pushing back all the way, I have a general understanding of the cultivation process of this secret talisman. The monk first built a deep well in his own water house, and the 4 characters Edict of the Rain Master were engraved in a circle around the well. The well must be tilted slightly inward with a high outside and low inside, which is similar to the patio that every household in the town has. There is an emphasis on the 4 waters returning to the church. About every 60 years on the winter solstice, find a river and a giant lake with abundant water transportation, take a bucket of water, divide it into 4 parts, and pour the 4 characters of Rain Master Edict respectively. The word for rain is in the middle, the word for teacher is written down, and the word for imperial is the last stroke, so that the last stroke of the word will flow into the well. Because it is in its own small world, everything can be done at will without breaking the rules. Between Qin Pingon and Xiao Mo, a water well emerged out of thin air. The 4 characters of the Rain Master's order were engraved on the well head. As the saying goes, well water does not violate river water, but since ancient times cultivating Taoism, cultivating immortals, seeking longevity, reversing yin and yang, ignoring the dark and bright paths. This is generally recognized as a trip against the sky. On the summer solstice of the coming year, the monks twisted the talisman into the world, and with the help of the scorching sun and yang energy, they took advantage of the scorching sun. The water talisman, as a tribute to this talisman, the monks swallowed a bucket of water like a whale, creating a scene of waterfalls pouring from the sky to the ground in the human world, hitting the bottom of the well to dig deeper. After dozens of jiazi, 100 jiazi's drops of water-piercing stones, this well can be inspired by the waters of the 5 lakes for seas, 9 rivers and 8 rivers in the outside world. The monks hold talismans and recite mantras, such as holding the laws of the sky, the law, the heavens, the earth, and the mouth. Xianxia, of course, borrowing water is not a hindrance. The water of the surging rivers can cover the sky and the sun, enough to cover the mountains and turn the land into the sea. I saw a bucket of water hanging high in the sky with a line hanging down, with the turbulent momentum of a waterfall pouring down, and after it fell straight into the well, there was thunder in the well. Xiao Mo said with a smile. With this method, after seeing merit for a long time, when you open your mouth and spit out a talisman, you can pour out a river. It's a veritable spit to drown people. Qin Pingon nodded and said, Chief Zhou also used such a metaphor at the time. No wonder the 2 of you haven't even met and there's already an invisible Dao battle. Jialao Xinxian once sighed with emotion at the wine table. It's not that the poor do not miss Chief Zhou's old feelings, but that Mr. Mo is too kind. Tui Dongshan is even more amazing. If you don't come back, Chief Zhou, just don't come back. Qin Pingon said, the fly in the ointment is that the most valuable part of this talisman is the material itself, which can carry layer upon layer of Taoism. Therefore, it can only be passed down from generation to generation, and the power of the talisman will become larger and larger, and the upper limit is extremely high. It can almost touch the origin of the water method, but it cannot be copied, let alone mass production. Xiao Mo said, since the crux of the problem is only in the material of the talisman, it is not difficult. The sun just needs to make it clear that I will reunite with fellow Taoist by Xiao in the future, and I can ask this fellow Taoist for something. Qin Pingon smiled and shook his head. If you owe someone's favor, don't owe the favor of this old master. Xiao Mo said, don't worry, young master, I am an exception. Qin Pingon choked for a while. Xiao Mo never speaks loudly. It was the trip to the blessed land of lotus flowers that year, which made Qin Pingon feel terrified when he thought of this old Taoist priest of the Taoist temple in the East China Sea. The Taoist heart is dusty. To put it simply, Qin Pingon already has a psychological shadow on the old guard. This is similar to the state of mind of a cultivator of the Dali branch, who often thinks of the young hidden official. Qin Pingon also sacrificed an ancient talisman that also came from Wanyao Zhongzhou Mountain, manifesting an ancient mountain named Taishan. There are as many mountain talismans in the world as ox feathers, with complex veins, and the soil is formed into a mountain. Swirl a small amount of soil in the Qi Palace. Recite the mantra incantation. Give the true meaning, throw it on the ground, and it will become a mountain standing out of thin air between heaven and earth. Among them, the most powerful lineage is recognized as moving mountains with the great mountains in the world, borrowing the true shape, and using it to smash people, which is very powerful. 2 ancestral talismans form a pattern of water surrounding the mountains. Xiao Imo recognized the foot of the mountain at a glance and said, "It used to be the place where Mr. Sanshan Jiuho taught the talisman to all Taoists who could climb mountains, but this gentleman is different from the Taoist Xianwei, and the threshold is very high. The law has always been passed down lightly to outsiders. There are many obstacles in the mountains, and most Taoist priests can't get up. It seems that the landscape barrier-breaking talisman of later generations was researched by the Taoists in this way. I have traveled to this mountain before. Of course I forced my way to the top with sword Qi, but the gentleman had already left at that time. It is said that he had a fight with the sword cultivator, one of the 10 richest men in the world. If you don't go, the master feels that it is not suitable for cultivation, so he will go down the mountain and travel. As for the outcome of that fight, the outside world does not know." Taoist priests, scholars, gentlemen, and masters in ancient times were all titles with extremely high gold content. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "No wonder the future generations want to become a cultivator of talisman. The threshold is so high and the difficulty is second only to becoming a sword cultivator." Han Yushu once followed a golden calligraphy tactic passed down by the founder of the mountain, and used the Taishan mountain as a talisman to draw golden silk threads on the mountain to increase the Taoism of an ancient mountain. The mountains are covered with hundreds of golden rivers and streams, descending from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. At that time, Qin Pingon was under Han Yushu's eyelids, drawing scoops according to the gourd and now learning and using them, so that Han Yushu concluded that Qin Pingon must have been in contact with the side branches of the Sanshan talisman. 2 ancestral talismans, plus the Sea of Clouds. The Sea of Clouds was at the bottom, the mountains were hanging upside down, and the water was in the middle. Qin Pingon and Xiao Imo were still sitting on the futon, so the scene they saw in their eyes was turned upside down. Qin Pingon reluctantly said, "I have already seen that it is a kind of overlapping talisman, but there is no evidence, no trace, and no thread, just like knocking on the cloud. There is no unique secret to assist or whatever. I can't learn." Qin Pingan's fingers swayed, and strands of golden light appeared on his fingertips, and finally he copied out an ancient talisman secretly passed down by Wan Yaozong, which was both a mountain talisman and a sword talisman. It's just that compared to the previous 2 Zhoushan talismans, which were real objects, the current talisman was made by Qin Pingon out of thin air. This is a golden talisman paper with 5 ancient mountains painted on it. It is a rare 5-colored soil that is used every time a talisman is used, and 1 tael is lost in the world. The word 5 sacred mountains is used as a character gallbladder. The cultivator sacrificed this talisman like 5 mountains hanging upside down in the air, the peaks like the tip of a sword pointing straight at the earth. Qin Pingon said, "This 5 sacred talisman has a prefix of the word big on the mountain, which is specially used to distinguish the 5 sacred talismans that are common in later generations. In addition to the special talisman paper, this 5 sacred talisman has a strange place. It is the use of sword art as a talisman, so it has the effect of a sword talisman. It is certain that there must be an ancient sword lineage that is temporarily unknown in that Wan Yaozong Patriarch's Hall." According to Jiang Shangzhen's estimation, this kind of talisman, known as the Great 5 Mountain Talisman, has become a masterpiece because of the disappearance of the East Mountain in the old 5 mountains. Talisman Yushuan Tianshi Mansion on Longhu Mountain, Talisman Library, one of Liu's 16 libraries in AI continent, as well as some 5 sacred talismans that have been preserved for many years. Altogether, the number will not exceed 30. It is rumored that Dongshan is a mountain city that does not need to be misty, and it will drift away with the long river of time. Student Cui Dongshan, with such an obvious connection, Qin Pingon of course asked him if he had any connection with the Dongshan. Cui Dongshan said it decisively at the time. He named himself Dongshan, just asking for a good omen. One day the East Mountain will rise again. It has nothing to do with the ancient mountain East Mountain. Xiao Imo asked, "Can't you just settle for the next best thing and use the soil of the 5 mountains of various countries to refine the cinnabar as a talisman?" Qin Pingan shook his head and said, I tried it but it didn't work. It didn't work if I used the soil of the 5 sacred mountains of our Aquarius continent. When he was young he was an apprentice as a kiln worker and often followed Master Yao into the mountains. Qin Pingan's understanding of the nature of earth is far better than that of ordinary qi practitioners. It can only be the 5 ancient mountains that borrowed soil from Haoran, but these 5 mountains now only Zhou Xian, the other Taishan and Dongshan are too hard to find. Maybe Sui Mountain and Jiui Mountain after the old 5 mountains can refine this talisman, but we have to take away the handful of soil attached to the root of the mountain with the gods of the great mountains. Easier said than done. It is said that Fu Lu Yushuan had such a plan very early back then, and he managed to gather enough soil from the 4 mountains, but he still fell short. Yu Xian is already highly respected and respected enough, but in the end he still traveled around Suishan with the divine name Dejia, and ate behind closed doors. Not. Divine sovereign travels around without nodding. Therefore Qin Pingan can only copy this talisman in his own little world. In the Cave Heaven Dojo in Mi Xiefeng, Qin Pingan has tried no less than 100 times to draw a talisman with talisman paper. Whenever the talisman is completed, it will dissipate in an instant and it will fall apart in an instant. Instead, the talisman gallbladder burst directly, causing the entire talisman paper to smash on the spot. After all, Xiaomo is not familiar with Fu Lui, so he is inevitably puzzled. Young master, since you already have a long river of time, why do you study Fu Lu so intensively? This is the first time that Qin Pingan has proposed to outsiders the specific ideas and details of his construction of this world. This world is divided into 4 layers. The first layer is the long river of time that has created various scenes of heaven and earth, which are infinitely close to reality. In the blinding method, the person who was asked about the sword is here. In order to find my real body, the barrier must first be broken. During this period, any action, every breath, every step, every sword and sacrifice, magical treasures, etc., the spiritual energy consumed by myself is naturally attributed to me. I plan to go to Tongye continent next time, take a trip to Zhenyaolu, and buy those sycamore leaves with Qingtong hidden in them. Qingtong's phoenix tree leaves have the mystery of 1 leaf and 1 Bodhi. As long as there are more than one, it really has the magical effect of Hengsha world. Second floor, after he breaks the barrier he still needs to ask the whole world or ask the sword. Together with the talisman I used to stabilize the barrier of the heaven and the earth, so I will refine hundreds of thousands. Even if there are millions of talismans, the rank of the talisman paper does not matter whether it is higher or lower, and wins by quantity. Of course, it is better to have such a large talisman. It is better to continuously strengthen the avenues such as the mountain roots and water veins, cloud roots and rain feet of the heaven and earth, and finally achieve that kind of great realm where the river of time is long, the water is long and the sky is limited, and the mountains are solid and the soil is immortal. Is there any 300 gold and copper coins in the treasury of Chuanfu? The width and depth of this long river of time is really a world of difference. The way of the world is the same. The way to go is the same. If you go back to the source, the ultimate way is probably that a tree blooms with thousands of flowers. The Dao tree has low branches which are within reach and the technique is easy to learn. The Dao tree has high branches and the threshold for cultivation is also high, which is unattainable. Qin Pingan sat on the futon with a narrow knife on his knees, his hands clenched against his knees, and his eyes were full of energy. On the 3rd floor I will visualize 3 key figures who sit in the hub of heaven and earth, a sword repairer and a knight tour on his back. A warrior holding slaying and execution. Having said this, Qin Pingan grinned. For outsiders to enter this world, if they want to see my real body, it's like burning 3 incense sticks first and passing 3 levels. Xiaomo was silent for a long time and asked, Young master, the last floor? Qin Pingan smiled and said, Keep it a secret for now. On the side of Nujiadu Baozhai, separated from the man who claimed to be the uncle of Qin Shanju Hongyonghua, and the maid continued to stroll around the shop. From the old man's point of view, the business here is indeed a bit deserted, and it is too inconsistent with the location of such an important hub as Nujiadu. If their own King Fanfang is opened here, it must be a scene of overcrowding every day. Hongyonghua asked with a smile in his heart, Master, what do you think of this state? The peach blossoms outside the bamboo, the artemisia are all over the ground, The yang qi is startling the sting and the time is warm. The young woman who was respectfully called the owner by the old man said, "The scenery in Chuzhou is good, but even if you are in it, you will inevitably feel cramped." The old man nodded in agreement. Even if Longquan Jinzong moved out of Chuzhou, there are still many hilltops and immortal mansions here. For the qi cultivators from outside the hometown, it is really constrained, and there is a feeling of being under the fence wherever they go. Just the fact that Yufeng needs to hang the sword talisman makes the cultivator from the foreign country feel very uncomfortable. They disembarked at Nujiadu this time and they went to Luopa Mountain to visit the young hidden official. If they wanted to send a letter to Jiasfeng, they would be able to invite Qin Pingon. King Fufeng felt that it was useless. Maybe Luo Peishan will be regarded as the kind of character who does not know the importance in etiquette. The two walked into a shop that sold many potted plants including orchids. Hong Yonghua has been doing business in the room on the second floor of Qingquanfang for nearly 80 years. As if in a blink of an eye, a few glasses of wine are just 100 years in the past. The old man met Qin Pingon 3 times, and saw with his own eyes that he changed from a young man with a sword on his back with a wine jug to a young ranger wearing a hat, and then to the unhappy mountain master. When Qin Pingon was on the second floor, she happened to wipe the ancient sword in the cold room on the 3rd floor. She was keenly aware of the strangeness downstairs. At the door of the shop, a man in a blue shirt stood, clasped his fists and said with a smile, "Mr. Hong, sweet girl." The acting shopkeeper of this shop is a young female cultivator from Zhuchai Island, but according to her seniority she is the junior Liuxia manages to clear. The woman introduced herself with a smile and said, "Sorry Qin Shanzhu, I am the current shopkeeper of Qingfanfang. My real name is Zhang Kaiqin Gong Changzhang, multicolored color, watercress Xi celery." When Qin Pingon left Qingfufang, he once looked back while walking on the street, and when he saw this woman standing by the railing, it was already certain that she was a sword cultivator with hidden qi. In the backyard of the shop, there is a special house for entertaining guests. Tea and drinks are prepared. Qin Pingon made tea and entertained the guests himself, jokingly said, "Mr. Hong is really hard to invite. Today is an unexpected joy." Hong Yonghua said with a smile, "If Master Qin just invited me to be a guest on Luopa Mountain, how could I refuse again and again? But Master Qin is blatantly digging the wall, how dare I agree?" After all, he had met the young Qin Pingon. The key was that the two sides had done business several times, so the old man was even more relaxed and more casual than Zhang Kaiqin. Hong Yonghua asked, "The two friends who traveled to the Longshan ferry with Shanzhu Qin? Are they members of the Luopao mountain genealogy?" The bearded swordsman is named Su Yuanxia. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "The young Taoist priest is called Zhang Shanfeng. They are all good friends that I met by chance in my early years. They are not members of Luopao mountain genealogy. I would not be happy to ask him to come to Luopao mountain. One is similar to Mr. Hong and already has a teacher from the mountain, so I don't dare to dig a wall. The real fire dragon who lay on the ground peak has a high prestige in Beiju Luzhou, and no one can compare it on the mountain. Zhang Shanfeng is this old real person's lover again. How dare Qin Pingon dig a foot in the wall? Not to mention the old real person, several brothers of Zhang Shanfeng in Yuanlingdian can come to Luopao mountain to block the door." Huolong Zhenren is famous for being kind to people, and there are countless titles of guest officials, both named and anonymous. But the old master will always remind you, don't spread the word about being a guest minister for you. Of course, if you have a problem, you will come to Pitafeng to find a poor man. If you can help, you will definitely help. At the beginning, there was still an immortal master who was complacent and felt that he could invite the old real person to be his own guest. Not to mention the only one, it was always one of the few benefits. As a result, I got together with my good friends on the mountain, got drunk, and when we chatted we slipped our tongues, only to realize that something was not right and looked at each other in dismay. "You are? The same to you? Are you still?" It was all. As a result, Pitafeng was stunned that there was not even a cross-continental ferry, and every person would say something, "The poor road is poor." The real people of Beiju Luzhou Fire Dragon are impoverished, the Taihui Jinzong Lu Jinglong's wine table is invincible, and the night tour banquet of Weishenzhen in Beiyue of Aquarius is so famous that it has long been not limited to one continent. Hong Yonghua said sternly, "This time the owner and I made a special trip to find Lord Qin Shanzhu." Qin Pingon handed tea to the two of them, nodded and smiled. Mr. Hong said it straight, they are not outsiders. Hong Yongbua said, our King Fufang is located at the Xianxia ferry in Dilong Mountain, and the real owner of this ferry is actually the royal family of Qingxing Kingdom, because it is located south of Dadu. According to the agreement, the Lu family of Qingxing Kingdom took off the big family lease status as a vassal state after the reunification of the country. The new national teacher is a good friend of mine on the mountain. I have known each other for more than 100 years and I know the basics. I blame me for greed for cups and I can't keep my mouth shut, and he boasted that I was old acquaintance with Chen Shanzhu. It is estimated that he will go to Emperor Liu's side to ask for credit. And it just so happens that His Royal Highness the Prince of Qingxing will hold a crown ceremony in the middle of the year, and His Majesty the Emperor hopes that Lord Chen Shanzhu can take time out of his busy schedule to participate in this ceremony. Zhang Kaiqin hesitated for a while because it was not the case. She took the initiative to talk to the Emperor Lu of Qingxing Kingdom about this matter. She and His Majesty the Emperor felt that they could come to Luopa Mountain and have a try. When I traveled to the Beiyue boundary, Qin Pingon is so old-fashioned. Just with such a subtle expression of Zhang Kaiqin, he immediately guessed it, but pretended not to know the truth and agreed with a smile, no problem. Qin Pingon also added a half-joking sentence. If Mr. Hong is really worried and afraid that I will forget, just send a letter to Jiasfeng a few days before the celebration, and it will be a reminder to me about this. Now that the business has been negotiated, the big stone in my heart will fall. Zhang Kaiqin expressed her sincerity and clenched her fists with the master Chen Shanzhu. Qin Pingon had no choice but to return the salute with a smile and clasped fists. Don't be so polite, it's just me making amends for the previous digging. In fact, Zhang Kaiqin was not very hopeful about inviting Qin Pingon to participate in this ceremony. The other party refused not even lofty or inhumane but a lot of things. For example, there are many hills and dharma lineages in a Xianfu sect. An old patriarch of the patriarchal hall was invited to attend a ceremony on a certain peak, and then the other peaks and peaks followed the invitation. Don't show up? So either don't go at all, or it's easy to take care of one thing and lose the other, or you'll be attending ceremonies with various names all day long, and don't think about pure cultivation. Our owner, when we were young, we met a wandering master who got the 4-character prophecy of Earth Immortal Sword Cultivator. Hong Yongbua took the initiative to mention one thing. As for the businessman's skills and management methods, although the owner does not pay much attention, it still delays the practice. Otherwise most of the prophecies have already been spoken. She was a little helpless. Why should she tell outsiders about this? Especially this, Earth Immortal, may be worth a little money in Jingyang Mountain, but what is it in Qin Pingan's Luopao Mountain? Qin Pingon moved slightly in his heart and said, I take the liberty to ask, was the passerby a man or a woman? As for complimenting Zhang Kaiqin's aptitude and his future achievements, I will avoid it. Both parties here are people who are used to doing business. They are hypocritical when they say it, and it will not be pleasant to listen to. Because of the secrets involved, Hong Yongbua was not suitable to speak, so he turned his head to look at the host. Zhang Kaiqin did not hide and said, it's a woman with an unremarkable appearance, Jingchai cloth skirt. She used to tell fortunes for several elders of the family, and she was very accurate. Everything I said came true. After that, I really quickly cultivated a flying sort of life. Peach pretending to be an umbrella. In fact, this unknown master of the world also presented Zhang Kaiqin with a gift, which was a square ink stone, carved with dragon patterns, and the inscription, dragon must be able to ward off heat. The woman also leaked the secret and predicted that Zhang Kaiqin's biggest cultivation practice in her life was in the word, cicada shedding. Qin Pingon nodded lightly and smiled casually. If I'm not mistaken, the so-called Earth Immortal does not mean the current Jindan and nascent soul, but the immortals in the upper 5 realms. The realm, as the old saying goes, specifically describes a terrestrial who lives in the human world. It was indeed Tianwan's fault. It is very likely that Tianwan was attracted to Zhang Kaiqin's aptitude, but was unwilling to take it to Jingyang Mountain like Su Jia and hand it over to others to cultivate. Moreover, Su Jia's special status was an indispensable and important link. It is estimated that Tianwan do plan to collect Zhang Kaiqin as an heir, or recommend it to Baishang to earn a favor for himself. Qin Pingon asked suddenly, the Shizai post in Mr. Hong's shop, but this master left it on purpose? Zhang Kaiqin and Hong Yongbua looked at each other. not knowing why Qin Pingon asked this question. This copybook is well known on Beipingzi Mountain. It was once the calligraphy treasure of a native swordsman in the ancient Shu world. It belonged to his proud work before he preached the Tao. No old-fashioned introverted intent. The painting that Hong Yangbo sold to Qin Pingon is of course a copy, but the writing is very close to the original, very ancient, and it belongs to the double hook method. First outline the hollow characters and then fill in the ink, so that the handwriting of Shi Zai Tai is like the slew of an autumn cicada. This method is often used in the world's treasure post method calligraphy to copy the stone. Qin Pingon didn't continue to talk about this copybook and then continued to chat. Hong Yangbo said that he would go to the land of Jiangyi with his boss soon, because an old friend met, and when they returned to the south, they would go to Luopao Mountain as a guest. Qin Pingon did not keep them and sent them to the door of the shop. The two walked towards Nujiadu and Zhang Kaiqin couldn't help sighing. I learned it, no water leaks. Especially the reminder that seems to be a reminder to Hong Yangbo is the real essence of the world. It means that he is definitely going to participate in the celebration. Otherwise Qin Pingon doesn't have to say this sentence at all. This is a reassurance for the two uninvited guests. Furthermore, the next time Feijian sends a letter to Ji Sifeng, it can be King Fufang or it can be Qingxing Kingdom writes. In this way, it means that King Fufang helped Lu of Qingxingguo and truly established a personal relationship with Luopao Mountain. It belongs to Qin Pingon who gave Qingxuan Fang an extra favor. It may not be regarded as a timely rain, but it can definitely be regarded as the icing on the cake. Now that he has decided to participate in the ceremony, Luopao Mountain is like pushing the boat with the current. No matter how much more face is given to Qingxingguo on the surface, at least in the eyes of the outside world, it is the emperor of Qingxingguo who invited the young hidden officials to visit the capital. It's just a seemingly superfluous letter. Luopao Mountain, King Fufang and Qingxing Kingdom's court, all three parties are very happy. Hong Yangbo smiled and said, "Fortunately, Master Qin Shan is a good person." Zhang Kaiqin laughed dumbly. After sending Hong Yangbo and Zhang Kaiqin out, Qin Pingon did not leave the shop, but returned to the backyard room and packed up the tea set. The girl's face was flushed and one hand clenched the corner of her clothes. She complained that she was not clever and she needed to be cleaned up by Qin Shanzhu herself. The name was given by the patriarch. I am the Zhuchai Island cultivator. As soon as the words were spoken, the girl almost stomped her feet without annoyance. How could Lord Qin Shanzhu not know that he came from the back of the clawfish? Aren't they all taking care of the shops in Nujiadu Baozhai? Qin Pingon nodded lightly and asked with a smile, Lan Rai, who is your master? Lan Rai is the name of the boat. Lu Daozhu is still very talented. The girl smiled and said, Master's name is Luopu, and now he is practicing in the blessed land of Qin Shanzhu. Qin Pingon smiled and said, This shows that your master's aptitude is very good. Lan Rui nodded vigorously. It's her master a must. After Qin Pingon left Nujiadu, his figure turned into a rainbow and he disappeared in a flash. He came directly to Huanghu Mountain and saw the earth dog squatting by the water. Qin Pingon squatted down, rubbed its head, restrained his smile and said, It's hard for you. Since it has not yet been refined, it can no longer be regarded as a Taoist friend. It grinned and shook its tail. In the past, that little black charcoal lived in the small town school, and every day after school was when she was in the best mood. Next to him was a little girl in black who was the right guardian of Riding Dragon Lane, and a left guardian of Riding Dragon Lane who was walking with his tail between his legs. Pei Qian likes to swagger when he walks, crossing the streets and alleys. As long as there are no outsiders nearby, he often likes to shout loudly. Walking arrogantly, the enemy is flustered. Whoever dares to stand in the way, beat him away with a stick. If it is a friend, if they meet, kill the dog. I will eat meat and drink soup for you. The rhyme is quite rhyme, but it doesn't take care of the dog's feelings at all. The bleak years of the unbearable past are unspeakable. Even if he had been able to speak a long time ago, he would not speak. As soon as you speak, is it still good? Knowing about it by Pei Qian, he doubted whether he would be hung up and beaten by Pei Qian. At that time, every time Pei Qian taught Zhou Mili a lesson, it was the mantra, Millet, we can't be too left-handed to protect the Dharma as a human being, and our tails are raised to the sky. Occasionally, the three of them squatted at the door of the shop in Kelongxiang, basking in the sun and eating melon seeds. Pei Qian often talked about her dangerous and colorful resume, and some truths that were definitely impossible to verify, such as, my master once had a relationship with her. I once said a wise saying, money is hard to earn and is bad. Man, teach me a set of mad swordsmanship. Fortunately, the millet is still protecting it, otherwise it will really run away from home, let alone riding the dragon lane. The town will not stay. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, have you thought about your real name? It lowered its head, meaning it already had a real name. Qin Pingon stood up with a little regret, then I want help with the name. As he was about to leave Huanghu Mountain, Qin Pingon couldn't help being curious and asked, what's your name? It lifted its foot and swiped on the ground. 2 words were written and the handwriting was quite similar. Hanlu. Qin Pingon nodded and smiled. It is indeed a good name. Without returning directly to Luopa Mountain, Qin Pingon went to Yuanmu Peak first. The old cook was working as a carpenter, holding a piece of log, squinting his eyes and preparing to play ink, and there were wood flowers planed everywhere at his feet. Seeing Qin Pingon, the old cook smiled and said, why is your son here? Qin Pingon rolled up his sleeves and smiled, I'm not just hanging out, I'll help you. The white-haired boy rushed to the wind, rushed forward, rolled on the ground several times before jumping up, stood still and patted the dust on his body. Ancestor hidden official. I want to report an important piece of information to your old man, thank you. The dog has quietly left the borders of Chuzhou. Qin Pingon sneered, it's all from the same sect, so you are so loyal? The white-haired boy stomped his feet and said, that's what loyalty and righteousness are difficult to achieve. Isn't this a tricky thing to do? Loyalty and righteousness, be loyal to the front and righteousness to the back. Zhou Xian nodded in agreement and said, it makes sense and it makes sense. When you turn around and engrave the word loyalty on your forehead with one hand on the heart and one hand on the back of your hand, Yibo Yun Tian, when you go out for a walk you will be powerful. The white-haired boy complained, old cook, why are you talking so unpleasantly with a strange accent, and you don't know who to learn from? It's okay to learn how to talk and how to behave from our ancestors. It's said that the moon is the first to get the moon near the water tower. It's better for you to do everything. You stay by the hidden official ancestor who is like the house of Zhilon every day. Zhou Xian still nodded and said, it's reasonable, you're right. If you quarrel with you, even if I lose. The white-haired boy put his hands on his hips. He wanted to start scolding, but after thinking about it, let it go. A quarrel is destined to be no match for this old cook. Qin Pingon said angrily, don't drag Guizhuzhou to fool around with you. The white-haired boy looked resentful, aggrieved and sniffed. I'm not thinking of breaking into the enemy's interior. I'm willing to cut my body. I don't hesitate to walk through the Longtan Tiger Cave in the Daoshan Fire Sea, and I'll get acquainted with that Shego first, that's fine. I gave a tip to the hidden official ancestor. Qin Pingon laughed angrily, then I have to thank you? The white-haired boy raised his toes and slammed the wood flowers on the ground. If the ancestor of the hidden official said this kind of foreign words, he would be cold and loyal to one of his confidants and generals. Zhou Xian echoed, it's that lively, fiery, daring loyal. Qin Pingon held back his laughter and it took the old cook to clean up this guy. The white-haired boy's eyes widened, almost choking out his internal injuries. In fact, the most powerful person in the matter of saying strange things is not Cui Dongshan, nor Zhou Lian, but Chief Zhou of Luopao Mountain. It is estimated that Chief Zhou has talent and knowledge, so he is invincible when it comes to telling jokes. Even the old cook and Jing Dafeng are ashamed. For example, the discussion in the Zhu Shirtang at my house is a quarrel in the pigsty. As long as you can raise your head when you see a beautiful woman, you will be old and strong and you will not accept the old at all. Fighting at the foot of the mountain, chickens peck each other. There is actually no smell of fat and powder on the side of the Yufusi in Piyun Mountain. There is neither manly's cookgirl rushing in and out, nor singing and dancing to add to the fun. It's just that Jing Dafeng and Weibo were drinking together and got drunk, saying that he had an idea. After hearing this, Weibo was shocked and speechless for a long time. You are a pure warrior, what are you doing over there in Chidu? Qin Pingon returned to the bamboo building by the cliff alone and sat at the stone table. Back then at the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Qin Pingon was only the second shopkeeper of a wine shop at the earliest. In addition to practicing boxing, the busy thing every day is to carve seals, build folding fans and compile 100 Swords Immortal Seal books, Shenzhen Fairy Seal books. Ningyao would occasionally go to the house to sit for a while. Qin Pingon was afraid that she would feel bored and that he would leave after sitting for a while, and he would have nothing to say. The reason and meaning of the text on the fan. At first, Ning Yao would listen carefully and would take the initiative to ask a few words about the source of the words and sentences, but later, for some unknown reason, Ning Yao would show a hint of impatience after listening to it a lot. It was not obvious, maybe she didn't even notice it, but Qin Pingon was so thoughtful, and the second shopkeeper was good at observing words and expressions. Soon she stopped saying more and made up her mind to talk less. It's just that every time she planned to get up and leave, she used a different method. Lame reason to keep her. Qin Pingon was secretly amused by this, but also a little sad. Because Ning Yao did this because she had a sense of crisis. Qin Pingon would find it very unreasonable, but between men and women, how can there be so much truth to say? To be precise, Ning Yao felt that, gradually, it was difficult for her to chat with Qin Pingon, and she would be very worried. This is the case today, what about tomorrow and the day after tomorrow? Ning Yao felt that he could only practice swords in his life, but Qin Pingon was different. No matter how far Ning Yao is on the road of cultivation, she is still a woman after all. As long as you walk on the road of human love, no one is a coward who worries about gains and losses. After listening to a sentence that does not go well with the ear, a woman's heart will be bleak, cloudy and rainy. She may suddenly hear a sweet love sentence, and suddenly the sun is shining brightly and the sky is clear. Qin Pingon lay on the stone table, folded his hands, rested his chin on the back of his hands and stared into the distance. Rarely has been in a daze for such a long time that the clouds are curling up and the moon is rising, and Qin Pingon still maintains this posture. Wine Sword Bright Moon Ning Yao. Sword of Coming Chapter 998. Qin Pingon sat up, turned his head to look. Wei Bo came here from Piyun Mountain, dressed in a snow-white robe with a golden earring on his ear. It is no wonder that among the 5 sacred mountains of Aquarius, Piyun Mountain has the largest number of female officials. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, "Is Xing Daifeng's drinking capacity so bad now that Wei Shanjun is still not full? You want to come to me for a second meal?" Xing Daifeng was probably too drunk, so he didn't return to the house in Luopao Mountain, so he found a place to sleep directly in the Shanjun mansion. Wei Bo rubbed his brows and mixed with drinking. It was easy to get over it. There are 2 things, one for public affairs and one for private affairs. If it wasn't for public affairs, I wouldn't come here in the middle of the night to disturb the mountain master's purification. Qin Pingon wondered, "Is there any business between you and me?" Wei Bo was angry and said, "General Chao Wu of Yuzhou, I have something to discuss with you. According to the military law of Dali, he can communicate with me directly by means of the secret military talisman. Now he is in the ritual department of Shanjun Mansion. As a guest, it is estimated that after drinking tea, I will come to Luopa Mountain to find you." Qin Pingon said strangely, "Yuzhou is not far from our Chuzhou. As a rule, a state general can be equipped with a private ferry, so why bother with Shanjun's mansion? Besides, Chao Wu really has urgent military affairs. Near the residence of the government, you can send the mountain Chujun directly to the mountain gate of Luopao Mountain. Why, deliberately making a big circle, this General Chao wants to use the name of Wei Shanjun to press me?" Wei Bo said with a smile, "I'm just helping to pass the word tonight anyway. Chao Wu is worried that you will find a reason to refuse, saying that he just went to the logging farm in Yuzhang County, Hangzhou, and met Lin Jingqing, the new official. Chao Wu's true identity is recorded in the Beiyue Mountain Monarch's mansion. Chao Wu's real name is Su Mao, and he is the Shihao country's early poet who wrote poems. As one of the main vassals of the latter, Shihao showed a very firm stance. In order to delay the footsteps of Dali's iron cavalry, the 2 countries fought and the battle was tragic. He transferred to Su Gaoshan, the patrolling envoy of Dali, and was the first to become a scout leader. Over the years he became the general of Daliu Prefecture step by virtue of his military exploits. Frontier army and officialdom, Chao Wu has a good reputation. Qin Pingon frowned slightly. "Then I'll go with you to the Department of Rights and System, and take the initiative to meet the general of Yuzhou who is here." Wei Bo smiled and said, "So to give face?" Qin Pingon said solemnly, "Now the entire Dali court has only a few generals from one state and half a parent official. Chao Wu did not go to the wild world. There are only 2 possibilities. One is to sit on the bench. The road to promotion in the officialdom of Dali has come to an end. And the other is that Cao Wu is already in the heart of the emperor and is regarded by the Emperor Songhe. One of the candidates to be in charge of the military department in the future will gradually break away from the Dali border army system, so that Cao Wu only needs to accumulate qualifications and connections in the local area, and in the future he will have the opportunity to become the person pushed by the Yuan clan of the Shangzhou kingdom to the central position of the imperial court. Later Qin Pingan followed Wei Bo to Piyun Mountain, and in an elegant courtyard he saw the general of Yuzhou who was drinking tea, and sat beside him was a female official who was burning incense and making tea. Qin Pingan clasped his fists and said with a smile, "General Cao, we have not seen each other for 20 years, right?" Cao Wu had already stood up to greet him, clasped his fists in return and said with a hearty smile, "Cao Wu, general of Yuzhou, and Su Mao, an old man of Shihao kingdom, have seen Shanzhu Qin, but haven't seen him for many years." Shanzhu Qin as the host. Wei Bo smiled so that the chief of the etiquette department who was in charge of making tea and entertaining guests did not have to be busy, and let him greet the two distinguished guests in person. The young hidden officer who saw the real person for the first time gave a blessing and left. Piyun and Luopao are so close together, and Shanjun and Qin have a well-recognized relationship in one continent. However, for some reason Qin rarely visits Piyun Mountain. Many officials in her etiquette department are concerned about this. It was deeply regrettable that she even please order with Shanjun several times, and be sure to invite a young hidden official to sit down at the right system division, but unfortunately Wei Bo was just talking about him. After Qin Pingan was seated, he took the teacup from Wei Bo and asked, "I don't know what Brother Su is looking for from me tonight?" Su Mao said, "His Majesty the Emperor is about to make a secret tour of the south, during which he will be stationed at the Yuzhong County Logging Institute. As the general of Yuzhou who also leads the military affairs of Hangzhou, I must ensure that His Majesty will travel, but now the group of monks accompanying the army in the general's residence, most of them are young people and experienced cultivators who have accompanied the army. They have all been dispatched to the battlefield in the wild world, so I am worried that in case of some unexpected situation, it is inevitable that I will not deal with it properly, so I dare to invite Qin Shanzhu to go to Hangzhou, Yuzhong County." Qin Pingan answered the question, "About this matter, what does Master Lin have to say? Do you have any suggestions?" Su Mao said, "The owner of the Linyuan also feels that his logging department is limited by its own responsibilities and staff allocation, and it is difficult to take care of all aspects. It needs more efforts from the Yuzhou General's office." A typical official speaking vague wording, seemingly saying nothing and seeming to say everything at the same time. Qin Pingan smiled, nodded and said, "Understood. I would like to trouble Brother Su to come back and give me an exact date. Even if I can't rush to Yuzhong County in person, I will let the swordsmen in the mountains guard secretly. After all, this matter involves the secrets of the imperial court. I only have a last-class peace card issued by the military department of Dali. It is reasonable to say that without the order of the Ministry of Punishment, Luo Pashan and I cannot participate in this matter, so Brother Su can jointly inform the Ministry of Punishment and the Ancestral Hall of the Ministry of Rights. To avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, with the exact answer from the court, I can arrange the candidates and itinerary as early as possible." The Yuzhou general was instantly relieved and raised his glass with both hands. "Su Mao uses tea instead of wine. Thank you, Lord Qin Shan." Qin Pingan also followed after drinking a cup of tea, and then chatted with Su Mao about the recent situation of Shihaogua. Su Mao quickly left. After sending the general of Yuzhou to the door, Wei Bo again used the supernatural powers of Shanjun. Su Mao was able to shrink the mountains and rivers, and went straight back to the secret room of the general's mansion. Wei Bo smiled and said, "It's obvious that General Cao intends to use you as a favor. After all, there are only a few people in Beipingzu who can invite Lord Yinguan. It doesn't matter whether you will visit Yuzhong County in Hangzhou or not. Only 1 or 2 members of the Luopao mountain genealogy show up there. I believe that His Majesty the Emperor will look at General Cao with admiration. I am more curious about how Cao Wu talked to Lin Jingqing. Do you want me to help you find out? To avoid being drilled by Cao Wu empty." Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "Forget it, I was hesitant to go to Yuzhong County." Without Qin Pingan taking the initiative to ask, Wei Bo talked about the so-called private matter. Xing Dafeng said that he has 3 choices now: stay in Luopao Mountain, not be a gatekeeper, find a vassal mountain, teach people boxing later, and then it is to go to Tong Yezhou to hang out with Cui Dongshan. The third option is for him to go to Chidu, but if you want to do this, you and I need to recommend it together. So he is more embarrassed. Qin Pingon angrily said, "Is this guy's brain flooded?" Yu Xing Dafeng, a pure warrior, went to Dadu to be the Duke of Dadu. It is true that today in Dadu, in the central part of Aquarius, there are Chongchun Ho Yanghua and Lily Chao Yong, but there is still a lack of a Shuijun with the title of Gong. To facilitate this, no matter who fills the vacancy, the Dali court of course has the right to recommend. Although it still needs the approval of the Confucian temple, it is just a passing scene. Immortal Mansion, the situation is very different because this great blasphemy was excavated by the Dali dynasty, and the Confucian temple will not point fingers with the Dali Song clan on this matter. As for this great blasphemy that has high authority but has been unresolved for a long time, it is not an exaggeration to say that the forces of all parties are robbing the head. So if Xing Dafeng really intends to go to Chidu to pick up the leaks, in addition to needing Wei Bo's help to match up, in fact, the one who can really finalize the matter has to refuse to take the position. Qin Pingon, the national teacher of Dali. Wei Bo leaned against the door and said helplessly, "I scolded him like that at the time, but he said it was master's intention. What else can I say? It's not like you don't know that Xing Dafeng is the most respectful teacher." Qin Pingon took a deep breath. Wei Bo glanced at Qin Pingon, who had a gloomy face, and said with a smile, "Why are you so rude? You cultivators have been watching for a long time, and our civil, military and heroic achievements can be regarded as a kind of common goal." When he was drinking at the UFU division earlier, Xing Dafeng was drunk with hazy eyes, wiped his mouth and said with a smile that if he can become such a high-ranking official and Pai Yunshan can keep up with him, wouldn't the landscape be blooming and good brothers really share weal and woe? The same wealth, have the opportunity to have a divine number. Qin Pingon shook his head and said, "Xing Dafeng is different from you. Simplicity is just a good thing, it is nothing more than a consumption of favors." Of course, Qin Pingon will not hesitate even if Luopeishan needs to do some benefit exchange with Dali Song for Xing Dafeng. It is a trivial matter. The problem lies in Xing Dafeng. The reasons for embarking on this divine way are extremely complex and far-reaching. It is impossible to say whether he repeat the same mistakes, or what. The key point is that Qin Pingon still does not know whether Xing Dafeng remembers the events of the past. All in all, in Qin Pingon's opinion, this matter can be wait and see. After all, Tong Yezhou will also have a brand new blasphemy. Xing Dafeng really wants to seek a divine position, and there will definitely not be the sigh of, "There is no arrangement in the world" in the future. Qin Pingon asked, "What does Xing Dafeng think? When drinking with you, did he show any inclination in his conversation?" Wei Bo smiled and said, "It's my fault that I didn't say it clearly. It's not as bad as you think. Our brother Dafeng was at the wine table before, and we had already started to plan the 20 divisions of our own water mansion, and we would invite women who have not yet filled the vacancies. Please make a list for him anyway, it must not be inferior to Pai Yunshan." Qin Pingon was so aggrieved he couldn't help but scolded her mother. I don't know whether to scold Xing Dafeng for being lenient, or to scold Wei Bo for lying about military intelligence. Today there is wine and today is drunk, tomorrow's worry comes tomorrow's worry. Wei Bo smiled and said, "Master Qin Shan is busy with business and it is rare to come to Piyun Mountain. Since everyone has come, I must take this opportunity to have a few drinks tonight." Qin Pingon said, "As far as our relationship is concerned, what kind of wine we drink, the friendship between gentlemen is as light as water." On the other hand, when Xing Dafeng climbed the mountain, he kept suggesting that Wei Shanjun should drink more or less meat tonight and don't make it too clear. It's just that Wei Bo pretended not to understand Xing Dafeng's suggestion. But fortunately, Xing Dafeng didn't complain when he drank the vegetarian wine. Wei Bo stretched out his hand to grab Qin Shan's arm, dragged him into the house again and took a seat, and snapped his fingers again, and soon there was a palace makeup officer of Huan Ping walked into the house, brought wine and food, and was only responsible for there are as many as 3 female officials carrying food boxes. Could it be the number of ways that 3 or 2 chopsticks can finish a dish? Otherwise, it's just 2 people drinking each other. Where does it take so much trouble? Moreover, when they arranged the wine utensils and placed the dishes, their movements were especially gentle, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. With a smile on his face, Qin Pingon said in his heart, "Jun Wei Shan, do you count as revenge?" Wei Bo smiled and said, "If you want to add a crime, there is no excuse." Presumably within the past 6 months, his own etiquette department will no longer complain about the busyness of the documents. Next time Shanju Chen visits Shanjun Mansion, can the drinking place be moved to the supervision division? After they all evacuated the house, Wei Bo didn't bother to persuade him to drink. He picked up the spring bamboo shoots and the pickled vegetables with chopsticks, chewed it slowly and asked, "The 5 mountains of treasure Pingzhou, there is a chance to entitle the gods, what do you mean?" Qin Pingon took a sip of wine. "What do you think? I'm not even a sage of the academy, how can I be so powerful?" Wei Bo said, "But according to the news from the Middle Earth Divine Continent, it seems that your husband personally put forward this suggestion. The Ritual Book Academy is also very insistent, and Mao Sai also gave a copy a very detailed plan explaining the pros and cons of this matter. Among them, 3 of the Confucian Temple leaders and vice presidents, 1 in favor and 1 against, and the other one has not expressed a position for the time being. Therefore, the Confucian Temple still needs to hold a formal discussion that requires the presence of the 72 academies. And then to finalize the final result of this matter in the big picture, it is still more likely to pass." Qin Pingon nodded. Since Sui Shan, including the 5 sacred mountains of the divine continent in the Middle Earth, has long had divine titles, then this matter is at least in line with the rules of etiquette. Maybe after the decision is made, you guys will be listed on the Confucian Temple's landscape genealogy. It is highly probable that the position of God will remain unchanged. After all, the other 7 continents do not have the Dayue Mountain Lord for the time being. In recent years, the Confucian Temple has restarted the Dadu sealing ceremony, plus the Lord of Land and Water Transport and the establishment of the 4 Sea Lords. And there are also the matter of the water holding a dart can help the water to obtain merits. Presumably, the Mountain Howren must have some opinions. I will also nag a few words. If you give it to treasure the 5 mountain kings of Pingzhou, the sacred number for the Confucian Temple, it is a matter of benefit and cost. It can not only help Beipingzi stabilize the mountains and rivers, but also appease the world's mountain gods, so that the Confucian Temple is not too partial to the water god. In this way, many mountain gods in Biezhou still have hope, which means that there is an additional promotion channel out of thin air. 3 birds with 1 stone, why not? Wei Bo smiled and joked. Master Mao Shan was transferred to the secretary of the School of Rites. He's really a fairy. Qin Pingon complained, "Fuck you, this is called Guangfengji, you act impartially, you don't get cheap here and behave well." Wei Bo said, "For that thank you gift, next time you go to Wuxia Xianxia, remember to thank Ning Yao for me." Qin Pingon nodded and said, "It must be brought." Wei Bo said tentatively, "Listening to Jing Daifeng's tone, you seem to be someone who urgently needs gold and copper coins right now. Piyun Mountain still has 7 or 80 gold and copper coins in storage. The family belongings, relying on the salary of Dali, the ants moved and accumulated hundreds of years and 1,000 years. Maybe there is a swipe and now it is no longer needed, why don't you take it?" Qin Pingon waved his hand. "I don't care about your beryllium, copper and rotten iron." Wei Bo immediately held the cup in both hands. "The owner of the mountain is very strong, I must toast." "Good guy, dare you to wait for my words." Qin Pingon waved his hand. "Stop the ink, first toast 3 cups in a row and talk about sincerity." Wei Bo really drank 3 glasses of wine in a row, hiccups and joked. "According to the customs of Chuzhou today for weddings, the wine table has to be set up twice, 1 in Feishengcheng, and if there is a place on the other side of Luopao Mountain not enough, our Shanjun Mansion can help make room." Qin Pingon gave Wei Bo a thumbs up, took off his cloth shoes, rolled up his sleeves, and judging by his posture he planned to compete with Wei Shanjun at the wine table, and with a snort he drank a glass of wine. Wei Bo suddenly said, "Lin Shi has been in retreat for a while and he is at the Changchun Palace. According to the recent signs of the Beiyue ley lines, it is very likely that he and Xie Ling of Longquan Sword Sect will enter the Jade Pure Realm at about the same time. The 5 people in Yuan Huajing are now helping Lin Shi guard the gate." Qin Pingon said, "Since Su Mao has promised to go to Yuzhong County, then let's go to Changchun Palace first?" Wei Bo said angrily, "What does it have to do with me? It's too late to welcome you to Changchun Palace. It doesn't matter if you have me or not." Qin Pingan stretched out his hand. Give it back to me. Ning Yao likes to read Qin Pingan's landscape travel notes, and also said that this good habit can be maintained. On the top of his own mountain millet grains are of ear, and now the white-haired boy is still in charge of compiling the chronology and he can't hide it. When he thought of traveling to the Middle Earth and Divine Continent in the future, he would also have to go to the blessed land of 100 flowers. Just like until now, hasn't Qin Pingan never been to the Fox country in his blessed land? Wei Bo laughed loudly. Then I will reluctantly and accompany you to the Changchun Palace. Qing Song outside Lulu, red robes by the water, wind skirts and jade pendants, colorful skirts and streamers, yingyin jianyin everywhere. Just like the female officials of the various divisions of their own Shanjun mansion, whether they are from the old landscape gods or from the spirits of mountain ghosts, they are almost all curious about this young hidden official who is surrounded by clouds and fog. Wei Bo said with a smile. I'm surprised Ning Yao is such a big-hearted woman. You are so preoccupied with this kind of thing. Isn't it very suspicious that there is no silver 300 taels here, and the next door Wang heir never stole it? Qin Pingan sneered. Are you the god of the mountain and the lord of the mountain of Dayue, showcasing the method of shrinking the earth? As far as the reasoning on paper and the knowledge outside the book concerning love between men and women are concerned, I am no match for Zhou Lian, Chief Shou, and me De Jiangxian. Come on, even if you add them together, one hand is enough for Lao Tzu. Wei Bo was speechless with a helpless expression on his face. If he had known, he would not have helped the ritual division to save this wine bureau. Drink and drink. Temporarily rely on the wine glass to grow the spirit. After Qin Pingan finished drinking the wine in the glass, he waved his hand. It's boring to drink like this. Let's slap your mouth, hurry up, replace the wine glass with a big white bowl. Outside the water pavilion of Changchun Palace, on a road where flowers and birds depended on each other, a woman who was far inferior to Zhou Haijing and Gaian came, and beside her was a female cultivator with a girly appearance, the latter holding a fruit plate. The woman's name is Song Yu. She is the supreme elder of Changchun Palace, and the girl is her direct disciple named Zhou Nan. The entire Aquarius continent often does not understand the Dali Song dynasty, the chief consecrate Wan Qiong, and the Changchun Palace, which is still only one of the sect candidates. For example, if the Song family reminisces about the past with the current national power and background of the Dali dynasty, it should also be replaced by a chief worshipper who is at least an immortal, or even an ascension realm as the face of a country. Song Yudio's name Lin Yu is a cultivator of the highest realm and seniority in Changchun Palace. She is also a close disciple of the founder of Changchun Palace. The current palace lords are all just the nephew of this female nun. Song Yu is a very old nascent soul realm with a skillful appearance, a woman's appearance, but only the appearance of a middle-aged person. Because the Dali Song clan treated the Changchun Palace too favorably, the outside world has been speculating that the Dali Song clan can gradually rise from a small vassal state of the Liu dynasty at the beginning, amid internal and external troubles, and finally annex the suzerain country in a leap, becoming the hegemon of the northern Aquarius continent. In this turbulent process, Song Yu, who shares the same surname as the country, and the Changchun Palace created by her, are the driving forces behind the Dali Song clan to survive in the cracks. Precisely because of her, he was the mediator and was responsible for saying good things to the emperors of the Liu dynasty. The Song dynasty waited for the appearance of Yuan and Chao, the two ministers of Zhongxing, and waited 100 years ago to finally usher in the embroidered tiger. As the national teacher of Dali, and later he will invite the military saint Wan Qiong to serve as the chief worshipper. Song Yu came in person and Yuan Huajing walked to the bottom of the steps on the north side of the water pavilion, clasped his fists in salute. Most of the monks in Changchun Palace had noticed the movement here before, and for fear of an accident, they could only ask the Supreme Elder to come here to find out in person. In fact, Song Yu had already discovered the strangeness of the glazed tiles on the roof of the waterside pavilion. After she got the report yesterday, she just deliberately dragged her away and made a little trouble. This loss of money is nothing. It seems that her own palace is too petty. She kept calm, smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work." Gai Yen took the fruit plate and said with a smile, "It's not hard at all, it's all about duty. The scenery here is not bad, it's both eye-catching and mind-blowing." As the shopkeeper of the Xianxia Inn in the capital, he made up his mind to change his past and make the business of the inn better. Just like this water pavilion, which happens to be named Yesterday Feizhai. It was made just for her. Zhou Xian, the mother-in-law, speaks a bit ugly, but occasionally she can say a few human words. The girl took out 6 pots of Chongchun Palace wine from the square-inch object given by the master, according to the old rules. Gai Yan secretly rejoiced and got 5 pots again. As for the pot belonging to Zhou Xian, don't even think about it. This auntie is a money fan who fell into the eyes of money. Go for those jugs of wine. Zhou Xian just leaned on the pillar, put his arms around his chest and said with a smile, "After all, we are responsible and it is easy to make mistakes when drinking. Besides, the paintings and calligraphy are good in the waterside pavilion. It is said that when life is frustrated, you only need to borrow articles from the ancients to read. After all, it's enough to be super relaxed and you don't need to pour wine with wine. So we kindly accept it, and Xianxia really doesn't need to bring wine next time." Gai Yan said angrily with her heart, "Zhou Xian, are you lacking in virtue? Aren't you a fan of money? Why do you use this sinister method of killing 1,000 enemies and destroying 800 yourself?" Zhou Xian said with a smile, "1 pot to 5 pots, you make a lot of money and I make a little money, so I'm not happy. So if you can't earn a single piece of money, I'll take it as a big money." Song Yu was obviously a little surprised to hear that Zhou Xian acted so impartially, but she was a sophisticated old Yuaning and said with a smile, "Zhou Xianxia is right, but there is still a way to treat guests. We will give you drinks as usual in the future. If you are worried about affecting the protection of the customs, just leave it alone, drink or not, deal with it as appropriate. Even if you save it and take it away after you are done with business, it can be considered a little thought of our Chongchun Palace." Gai Yan just breathed a sigh of relief, only to hear Zhou Xian's condensed voice again. "Did you hear it? Did you learn it? If you have a wealth of money, if you have Song Yes success in life, you don't have to do much, you can achieve it in one go. Enough, the business of your Xianxia Inn will not be so good." Song Yu only walked and chatted with Yuan Huajing along the lakeside road. She had an excellent relationship with the Yuan clan of the Shangzhou kingdom and had a long history. The friendship can be traced back to the distant ancestor Yuan Xing. Therefore, Yuan Huajing was extremely respectful to Song Yu. The descendants of the Yuan clan in Shangzhou kingdom did not know that there was a real Yuan clan ancestral house in Erlang Lane in that small town after the opening of Lizidongshan, which made the Yuan clan one more genealogy that can be tested. This is the common trouble of many ancient aristocratic families. It is not easy to determine the first king of the family and the ancestor who obtained the surname. The rich and powerful family of one continent and all countries mostly use the one who obtained the king's heaven's favor as the first ancestor. After all, it is like with such an orderly inheritance of the Yunlin Jiang clan, there are only a handful of existences in the entire vast world. Song Yu sighed quietly. Master was unable to break through the bottleneck and become Jade Pu, and the soldier died. He once left a will and decree. In fact, Song Yu deliberately omitted 2 words. After being humble, there is still Rui. Yuan Huajing said, "The success of Chongchun Palace today is entirely due to the willingness of later monks to strictly follow the teachings of the founder of the mountain." In fact, the Yuan clan also has a similar family motto, and surnames like the Tianshui Zhao clan are similar in this matter. For a family, it is difficult to make achievements, and it is even more difficult to extend its well-being. If you want to escape the gentleman's swamp, the 3rd generation will decline, and the 5th generation will be executed, from a nobility to an aristocratic clan, and then maintain long-term vitality, whether it is reading history books or looking around. Around the officialdom, it seems that there needs to be rules and rituals there, silently affecting future generations. It seems invisible, but in fact it is indispensable. Over time, it has become a kind of family tradition. The female cultivator named Zhongnan was left alone by the master on the side of the waterside because she was not good at words. She seemed very cramped. She wanted to make the best of the landlord's friendship, but she didn't know how to speak, so she was a little cold for a while. The appearance of a woman can only be said to be delicate, not a beauty. Her real name is Yishan, so she is often nicknamed Yishan, because she was born from a low-ranking family of boatmen in Hongzhou town, and has not yet been pardoned by the Dali dynasty. So after going up the mountain to practice, she was forced to abandon her surname. It was renamed Zhongnan on the Changchun Palace genealogy. It is rumored that the Empress Dowager Dali was very fond of this girl when she was still the empress. After removing a final character, it was finally named Song Nan, the national surname of Song, and the south of the Queen Mother's name, South Hairpin. However, it is also said that it is also possible that he was given the surname Nan and the name Song. In this way, it is equivalent to the Empress Dowager Nanpin, who was born in Yuzhong County, Hangzhou, and accepted the girl as a family member included in the genealogy. No matter what kind of choice it is a great honor for a girl from a humble background. Fortunately, Gai Yan helped warm up the scene, and I asked her if she had anything, and then invited her to pass through the capital in the future. She must stay at her own inn, which can be discounted and very favorable. Zhou Haijing couldn't help dismantling the platform and said, "Discount? What kind of discount? 11% off?" The boy with his knees crossed with a mountain stick was stubborn and grinned. Although this Zhou Haijing was annoying, the few words that occasionally popped out made the young man feel a little familiar and close, because the tone of speaking with Mr. Chen was a bit similar. Sui Lin is a 5-element expert who is proficient in yin-yang numerology and astronomical geography, so his perspective on Changchun Palace is the most expert. According to legend, the originator of Changchun Palace, her ancestors were all Yuzhou fishermen. She did not have a clear teacher. She was born in Shanzi Yeshio, started from scratch and founded this Changchun Palace. Therefore, the housekeeping skills of Changchun Palace, the surface is the water method of several pulses, but the inside is a very clever 5 thunder law, and it is said that it has nothing to do with the thunder law of Longhu Mountain. According to the interpretation of the Master Su of the Zhaoling character, the dragon is the length of the scale worm, and it is both quiet and bright. During the spring equinox, it ascends to the sky to travel the wind and rain, and during the autumn equinox, it is hidden in the abyss to nourish the true spirit. Previously, Cui Dongshan along with Jiang Shangzhen and his long-lost sister Cui Huayuan went to the Egret Ferry in Jingjiang Mountain together. The boy in white squatted on the shore and once recited a poem about traveling to the immortals with roots in the mountains. It's just that it's not widely spread and it's a little unfamiliar. It is occasionally heard in later generations. It can only be guessed that it has something to do with a Taoist real person who traveled to the Aquarius, the founding emperor of the Liu dynasty and the founder of the Changchun Palace. It is the mysterious and mysterious words. The emperor resides in Zhen, Longda is in spring. Immortals travel in Changchun Palace. Do not ride a white dragon on a cloud cart. The South China Sea rises green and brews longevity wine. Of course, Sui Lin had also heard of this poem about traveling to the immortals, which was similar to a ballad. So this time he was guarding a pass for Lin, and he just took the opportunity to carefully inspect the geology of Changchun Palace. In other words, the best app for reading aloud and listening to books at present. Install the latest version. Zhou Haijing gathered his voice into a thread and whispered, "It is said that Song Yu and the ancestor of the Qin clan who belonged to the Dashiga line of Fengxue Temple were old acquaintances when they were young, so they have some stories? In Beipingzu you are the most well-informed. Is this true or false?" Gai Yan didn't have a good air. Fake. A martial artist who is full of food and supports himself, and cares about these messy mountain rumors every day, no wonder he loses to Yu Hong. Zhou Haijing laughed so hard that he didn't have the same knowledge as this female ghost in the Golden Core realm. Yu Hong, a martial arts master who beat you to change yen from an order, is not the same as playing. Zhong Nan was not good at dealing with people, so she just stood in the corridor and looked at the hill. When the girl and Lin Shi met for the first time, it was like a chance encounter. She only felt that the young man in the green shirt on the shore, clean clothes and elegant temperament, when he was in Hongzhou town, where the lights were feasting and the night was singing, it was like a spring leaf floating on the turbid water surface. On Zongnan's waist hangs a sword talisman made by Longquan Jianzong. Because it was a gift from his teacher and he was happy when he saw it, he always carried it with him as an ornament. Moreover, she had secretly traveled to the top of the old Beiwe mountain back then. It was not the kind of serious downhill experience, but it was more like relaxing and traveling in the mountains and water. Anyway, she was close to the teacher's gate and was in the land of Jiangyi. Then, on a mountain road, she accidentally bumped into a little girl with an umbrella covered in mud, and a girl in green clothes with ponytails. They walked together for some distance. The ponytail girl, who never said her name, even taught Zhong Nan an obscure fire method. But Zhong Nan never dared to practice it easily. After all, Changchun Palace is based on the water method. He Lei Fa, the Xianxia sect that is the foundation of its existence, did not dare to conceal this matter from the master. Song Yu didn't say much after hearing the Dharma, but asked his disciples to study this rootless fire Dharma after entering the Dragon Gate realm. Over the hills on the opposite side of the lake, there was a faint sound of thunder in the clear blue sky. It was no doubt that Lin Shui was about to pass out of the Gate of Enlightenment. Neither the catastrophe fell nor did it appear very boring. After a while, a man in a Confucian shirt walked out of the cave, and every time he took a breath, Lin Shui's face had 7 orifices, and there were strands of tiny golden thunder and lightning hanging on the mountain wall like dragons and snakes. Song Yu, his disciple Zhong Nan, and the 5 people in Yuan Hua's territory immediately went to the opposite bank. Song Yu saluted and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Lin, I'm very happy." Lin Shui returned the salute with the supreme elder of Changchun Palace. Lin Shui and Song Yu met for the first time in Hongzhou town many years ago. One was painting a boat and the other was on the shore. Although Song Yu was older and had a high position on the mountain, her words were witty and not a good idea. Old-fashioned, she could see at a glance that Lin Shui was an excellent cultivator, and even half-joking with the young man, she deliberately described herself as the kind of real mountain fairy, which included the phrase 5 thunders. Anyway, with the words not plain enough, he showed off his immortal style. When Lin Shui was in Chiduan Mountain, he got a book on the clouds which belonged to a young man who had just dabbled in the thunder method, and the content of this book was written in a crooked manner. Understand the true weight of the 4 words 5 thunders. On the waterside side, 2 elusive outsiders occupied the dove's nest. Qin Pingon leaned against the pillar, put his hands in his sleeves, tapped his toes on the ground and said with a smile, "I really want to talk about it, but also thanks to the secret book you gave?" Wei Bo was lazy, sitting beside the beauties, holding the railing with both hands, raised Erlang's legs and said with a smile, "I don't dare to greed for this merit." Back then in Chiduan Mountain, a swordsman who claimed to be incapable of splashing with one-handed swordsmanship took the boys and girls to sit on the ground and share the spoils. The scene at that time, in the words of the little girl in the red jacket, was that even Lin Shui ran very fast, but Lin Shui was the first to choose the treasure. The Lang Lang books on the clouds, tied with golden silk threads. When Lin Shui was also studying in the academy, he once followed a master of the academy of the Great Sui dynasty, and went to the Beiwei realm of the Great Sui dynasty to watch Leiyun. The master also gave him a thunder drum belly bottle specially used to collect thunder and lightning. Qin Pingon once returned to his hometown and climbed the mountain with the ponytail girl. Because he remembered that Lin Shui was the first practitioner among them and he was also a practitioner of thunder, so Qin Pingon asked Ruanxiu about the practice of thunder. For the precautions, she said some things that came from hearsay. Afterwards, Qin Pingon recorded them one by one in the book and gave them to Lin Shui. Qin Pingan's original intention was not even an extravagant hope of finding ways to fill in the gaps. He just wondered if Lin Shui could have more inspiration. Later, Jing Juzhong of Beidasheng secretly visited Huaihuang County, found the dragon slayer who secretly lived in the soul of a blind Taoist priest, and then accepted Gu Ken as a disciple. During the period of Jing Juzhong, he used a copy of Song of the Clouds, which he personally completed in exchange for one thing from Lin Shui, the one that Qin Pingon obtained from the blind Taoist Jiaxing, and then gave it to Lin Shui ancestral search mountain map. It turns out that this book on the cloud came from the White Emperor city in the Middle Earth. Jing Juzhong once asked about Longhu Mountain, but as long as Jing Juzhong has a discussion with others about Taoism, generally speaking, the other party should not think about how to hide it. Sure enough, Jing Juzhong he quickly wrote this book on the cloud by himself. The key point is that after Longhu Mountain and Beidasheng borrowed this book, all the nobles from Tianshu Mansion looked at each other, speechless. Knowing that the other party was borrowing, he secretly learned his own 5 thunders, but it seems that no matter how they search Yanshangxu, there is only a strange and awkward feeling. A Taoist book between the lines feels wrong everywhere, and everywhere is related to the secret Leifa of Tianshifu. The inextricable relationship seems to really need to be calculated, and there is a lot of Jing Zhuzhong's own reasoning, and even the Tianshu Mansion can learn from it. It's just that the one in Lin Shou's hand is a fragment, similar to the first volume, and is only suitable for the cultivation of the thunder method of the monks in the lower 5 realms. In the end, Cui Dongshan wrote his own comments on the 3 volumes of Lei Fa Taoism, which made Lin Shi's practice not only powerful, but also extremely fast, and he hardly encountered any barriers or bottlenecks. Qin Pingon asked, "Where does the old master from Xianxia Academy have roots?" Wei Bo nodded and smiled and said, "As you guessed, it is the avatar of the old coachman in the capital of Dali, the old Shinto senior who almost practiced with you. He obviously has long been attracted to Lin Shi's cultivating qualifications." Among the younger generation of Lizhu Dongtian, Lin Shi, Ma Kushuan, and Xia Ling are not quite the same as Qin Pingon, Lu Xianyang and Guqin. Until I entered the 5 realms, I hardly encountered any barriers, let alone encountered any dangerous fighting methods. Just 2 words: good luck. Qin Pingon asked again, "Have you heard of Xianxia Ji?" Wei Bo quickly checked his memory and shook his head, unheard of. At the end of a poem about wandering immortals, there is a sentence, "I only wish Mr. Xian to look at it frequently, and ask Xianxian outside Xianxian." And the Lang Lang books on the clouds, left in Beipingzu, fell into the hands of Lin Shi all the way. In fact, Beiju Luzhou, there is still a Xianxian collection of Xiangxiang, which finally belongs to Sui Jingqing of Duckweed Sword Lake. Last time, Lin Shi and Dong Shuijing attended the Luopao Mountain ceremony. Qin Pingon also shared a secret with Lin Shi, reminding Lin Shi that he had the opportunity to travel to Beiju Luzhou and visit the Lingxiao School's Pity Peak and Duckweed Jianhu, 2 places, because Sui Jingqing happened to have 3 volumes of Taoism, also lay fa called Xiangxiang Xianxianji. If there is a connection between the mountain and Sui Jingqing, Lin Shi and Sui Jingqing can exchange Taoism books. This is not uncommon in the mountains. Even some sects with good relations will give and exchange copies of their precious Taoism books with each other to enrich their families. Bartering, exchanging books for books are common things. The more sects and sects, the more frequent this is. Just like the Shengsheng Sui Jingqing also has 3 golden hairpins that seem to be similar. Whenever the golden hairpins strike each other, a circle of halo ripples will be stirred up, which contains the very subtle true meaning of thunder. The 3 golden hairpins are engraved with 4-character inscriptions. The spirit is pure and subtle, Wenqing Shinshao and Taixia Slave Ghost. This Leifa Dao book is also divided into 3 volumes. The only difference from the Book of Clouds is that the first volume of the former only explains the purpose of the Dao. Qi practitioners only have this book of secrets, which can be said to be almost useless. For example, it is like the 5,000 words passed down by the Taoist ancestors, which are known to everyone in the world and can be read by everyone. A Qi practitioner, embarking on the path of cultivation? But Sui Jingqing reluctantly relied on reading the first volume over and over again, and only by her own blind thinking she read out a Qi practitioner who was a bottleneck in the 2nd realm. The junior sister Sui Jingqing, who has returned to the sect, is simply a genius of the sky that makes him unmatched. It is not without reason that Wu Lei Jingfa is known as the head of all laws. At that time, Qin Pingon always felt that Sui Jingqing's Taoist book seemed to be waiting for Lin Shi. So when Jing Dafeng returned to Luopao Mountain this time and Qin Pingon solved the mystery, the answer was both unexpected and reasonable. People who practice have a tenacious mind and embrace Pu Shi. A person who has attained Taoism is self-contained, and the interior scene is clear. Qin Pingon said, "Let's go." Wei Bo wondered, "Can't you see Lin Shi?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "If Wei Shanjun had planned ahead, he would have prepared 2 congratulatory gifts and I would go see him." Wei Bo immediately stood up, glanced at the figure on the other side of the lake, nodded with a smile and quietly left Chongqun Palace with Qin Pingon. Sure enough, as Wei Bo expected, Lin Shi and Lin Shi were almost the same as the front and back. On the Longquan sword sect, Xia Ling successfully refined the exquisite pagoda and became the latest Jade Pure Realm sword cultivator in Aquarius. And in the deepest part of the earth vessel in Yuzhou, Song Su included 5 cultivators of the earth branch. When they were about to get the secret treasure, they saw a sable-capped girl with red cheeks talking madly, saying, "This thing, it belongs to the old things she hid here. Who dares to rob her? She is just a weak girl, she is very lady, but she can send rescue soldiers and ask her husband to help her to seek justice. He is famous. I feel bad for my daughter-in-law, afraid of my wife, and kill the few of you without negotiating." When the sable-capped girl saw that the other party was clearly intimidated, she nodded in self-satisfaction, and then raised her chin towards the hanging treasure full of layers of ancient prohibitions. Thanks for coming here in time. Otherwise you guys, if you are stupid, breaks the ban and the consequences are too serious. It is estimated that half of the Aquarius will collapse. Do you believe it? Oh, the Milky Way is high, the fire is burning, the dragon and snake are rising, the road is full of wind and horses, the sun, moon, mountains and rivers are added. Spectacular, heaven and earth have been collected into a treasure bottle. Does it sound amazing? Do you have any knowledge? I just made it up and that's roughly what it means. In the early years of the earth-shattering war of water and fire, you little children are now even immortals. Not at all, can you mix it up? I don't know how high the sky is. While talking nonsense she shouted, Xiaomo, is Xiaomo here? Xiago looked around, it seemed that Xiaomo really didn't follow and she felt warm in her heart. Sort of coming Chapter 999. One side of the water and soil nurtures the other side. The vastness of Zhuzhou time has changed, and there is a place where there is an overwhelming thing such as the 10,000-year-old sycamore tree in Tongyi's Hao. The same is true for the Aquarius Island, which is shaped like a water bottle with mountains and rivers. In the depths of the ley lines, there is a realm of Taishu with many restrictions and it is boundless. Except for the two sides facing each other, there is a square iron box covered with ancient seal inscriptions hanging in the air. Stand up falsely. Xiago sat cross-legged in this emptiness, his arms crossed his chest, his eyes showed approval and he said old-fashionedly, untie the 2-story landscape restriction, break the 3-story with magic weapons and brute force, you can come here, already it's a pretty good record. Isn't there an allusion about visiting friends on a snowy night in the book? You can come here and return happily. Look, it's snowing and it's a big goose feather snow. She said it was snowing and it really was snowing. The friend and foe were not divided, and Song Su reminded the other 5 not to rush. In the face of a great monk who can hide his chi and follow him all the way to this place, how dare he take it lightly? The 5 monks of the earthly branch are now in a serious battle, and Yu, who has a waist card with the word Su hanging on his waist, the girl clasped her palms and formed a formation. Baoguang was radiant, and the palms and backs of the hands were covered with ancient seals with cloud patterns. On her shoulder, there appeared a juvenile-looking ancient sword fairy god, with a pocket-sized figure, wearing a hibiscus crown, a sword wearing a red robe and a snow-white figure. Beaded stitching. Noon character formation master Han Zhoujin did not need to chant mantras, so he created an immortal palace tower with red mountains and rising purple air, and there are spiritual treasures singing praises like the sounds of heaven. The little monk is wearing a plain yarn chan robe, hanging a waist card with the word Qin, and his hands are sealed. He opens one eye and closes the other. There is a thunder pond where he closes his eyes, and a lotus pond appears under his feet. Xiago tutted his tongue in admiration and said, using the method of sewing people he acted arrogantly, dared to command the heroic spirit of an ancient sword immortal, and refined an ancient immortal who ruled over mountains and rivers. Think, open your eyes and close your eyes, relying on this to connect yin and yang and dim light. A Buddhist practitioner can even learn the 5 thunders of the stinky nose. You're all very powerful. Talents are talents. A well-deserved young handsome. Yu said in a heartfelt voice. Muck, quickly calculate a hexagram, test the depth, see what's coming from it. If you can't beat it, run away. Anyway, we can move rescue soldiers later. It is impossible to determine the real age of this sable-cap girl. The realm must have started in the upper 5 realms, and she is a monk who has never been recorded by the Dili Punishment Department. This is very strange. Is it a foreign monk who just sneaked into Aquarius? The little novice folded his hands together and recited a few words. The Buddha blesses you with nothing today. Even if you are shocked, there is no danger. Everyone is safe and sound. I will go to the temple to donate sesame oil money. The uninvited guest with 2 blushes seemed to have heard their thoughts and grinned. Young Taoist priests don't count, they're just wasting their minds anyway, they're their own family, their relatives when they go around, they're definitely not going to fight. The little novice folded his hands again and said silently, bless the Buddha. I kicked the iron plate again and I met someone from outside the world. If I knew earlier that I should go out, I should look through the almanac. Yu smiled and said, relatives, my own family? How should I say, seniors are not joking, right? Xiago smiled and said, believe it or not. Noticing the strangeness of the Taoist priest Guling, Yu wondered, It's just a hexagram. It's normal to vomit blood, but what are you doing when you close your eyes? Why are you still crying? Guling blinked, his eyes were bloodshot, and he said helplessly, "It's weird, like a big sun is close at hand, just looking at it can't stand it." Yu said bitterly, "Okay, then it's still the result of chopping melons and vegetables." Guling smiled wryly and nodded. "The other party is most likely an immortal. Now there is Zhou Haijing, a warrior at the top of the mountain, to fill the last gap. If all 12 people are present, they will still have the strength to fight. Unfortunately, Yuan Huajing's 6 people are in Changchun Palace and have never accompanied them to explore treasures." Xiego sighed. "This is the end of not listening to the persuasion. If you don't listen to the old man, you will suffer in front of you. Is the old saying accurate? I can't contact Yuan Huajing and the others for the time being, and Mr. Qin is not here. What should I do?" The girl stomped her feet. "Do you really want to drink?" Previously in the Inn of Gayan, Mr. Qin preached for each of them to eliminate hidden dangers, so as not to encounter inner demons in the future. Only when he arrived at Yu Ye's side, Qin Pingon gave her 3 words to drink more. On their hilltop, the leader is Jianxiu Song-su, and the think tank and military advisor are Yu, who seems to be carefree. Xiego had a relaxed attitude and pointed at the box. "I advise you all, don't open this iron box. If you are not careful, the snow will melt in an instant, even if you are not careful. Don't feel a little bit. This kind of soul is scattered and turned into ashes, even if it is a great cultivator of the Ascension realm, or those few old antiques with great powers. If they can find Fingdu all the way, they will not be able to save you. If you live in the box, it will fall to the ground, first smashing the wooden board that lost the support of the formation. It is almost like iron smashing thin paper. It will only rumble all the way through the land of Aquarius Island and fall into the deep sea. Mountain roots, the water is boiling, causing the entire Aquarius continent to be like a steamer, and the mountains and rivers in one continent are everywhere, and with just a few of you, the realm is not enough and it cannot be contained. Thankfully, I came early. If I was one step later and the box was taken into the bag by these kids, then the true ownership of this thing would be a confusing account. What's more, Xiego really didn't think they could take away the iron box. Her words just now were not completely alarmist. The newborn golden crow imprisoned in the box belonged to an ancient alien species, an extremely rare fire spirit, and was naturally rebellious. Once the shackles are broken by the outside world, and these monks have no means to clean up the mess, they will really be smashed through the roots of the Aquarius continent by the golden crow in one breath, leaving a big hole in the land gap, and then disappear without a trace, escaping into the sky. It is too empty, and if you want to capture it, it will be as difficult as reaching the sky. Song Su twisted his wrist, and there was a bottle-shaped treasure in his hand. "We are not completely unprepared. The junior has this object to be able to receive the treasure in the box." This object was handed over to Song Su by Mr. Yuan of the Qintian superintendent, and this object was excavated from a brand new blessed land just discovered by the Dali court. Discover the blessed land, enter the treasure, and then come back here to connect the golden crow in the ley line of Yuzhou, which are linked together, all thanks to Yuan Tianfeng's deduction and careful calculation. The emperor and the of the earth turn the water bottle. The reel in the well is in a hurry, the water bottle does not break, and the fire tree has low branches. Xiego squinted his eyes and saw that there was a little accident and a little bit of morality. It was really a tit-for-tat treasure. It seemed that there was an expert standing behind them. The book-chasing app recommended to me by an old book friend who has known me for 10 years. It's so easy to use. I rely on this reading aloud to pass the time before driving and before going to bed. You can download it here. If it were by Jing from the past, who cares about other things? Seeing the old things that fell from the fire hall in the past, there is already her brand of Dao marks. According to the past style, Bai Jing only needs a sword to split open the iron box. The young Jingwu Kuna, who had just given birth to spiritual wisdom, had nothing to do with her as to whether it would cause a continent to vibrate. It's just that when she left Luopao Mountain this time, Xiaomo was so relieved of her that she never followed monitoring, which made Xiego have more patience. Xiego rubbed his chin, slightly embarrassed, and wanted to prove that this big sun that fell to the earth belonged to the owner. She had to use a sword to cut open the box in order to convince the crowd. And this ignorant baby is obviously determined to win this golden crow. If it is in the wild world, it is very simple, cutting a few ants that are not even in the 5 realms, effortlessly, at most handing over 3 swords. First, he didn't want to cause trouble in the Howren world, and secondly, he didn't want to betray Xiaomo's trust. Xiego thought about it, so he had to be stubborn and give a compromise method that didn't conform to her previous style. It should be the barter is good. I will give you a treasure of the immortal armament rank so that you won't make a wasteful trip. Go back and make good business. Song Su shook his head and said, even if the seniors come up with more immortal soldiers, we will not agree. It's not that the juniors have to make further progress, and they don't dare to have the idea of selling them. It is really this thing which is of great use in our Dali dynasty. Or missing. Xiego stood up and said with a grin, I think you still don't know much about the situation, so you feel that you have a choice. What do you think? Yu said in a heartfelt voice, would you like to use Mr. Chen's name to scare the other party? After the last incident in the capital of Dali, the monks of the Earth branch have now reached a consensus. If you have any questions, please contact Mr. Chen. The Dali dynasty has just found a brand new blessed land with no evidence. The strangest thing is that this blessed land has a moon and no sun, and there are some gaps in the avenue. Therefore, this round of ancient falling sun is urgently needed to fill the gap. I've said it for a long time, we are related to each other, otherwise you think I'm wasting so much saliva for what? If there is such a relationship, it's just my temper, huh? Xiego shook his wrist. My Taoist companion is the little Mo who follows Chen Pingon. The Taoist name is Shizhu, the name is unfamiliar, and those who have been to the Imperial Palace of Dali, you must have researched the identity and resume repeatedly. He is much more handsome than Chen Pingon. Xiego crossed his arms around his chest and said with a smile, as for me, I just gave myself a new name, Plum Blossom, formerly known as Xiego. It doesn't sound particularly nice. Isn't there a poem in the book? It's spring again in Xiaomo in the south of the city. I see plum blossoms but no one is there. Xiego said for the last time, it's useless for you to reason with Chen Pingon about this matter. The thing is mine and it's mine. If you swear with me again, don't blame me for being cruel. Of course Xiego wouldn't kill him, that would only make it difficult for Xiaomo to be a human being. Just when Xiego was about to hand out his first sword, a scholar in a Confucian shirt appeared out of thin air in this Taishu realm. The layers of restrictions seem to be in vain, and this scribe seems to be in a realm of no one. He looks like a scholar, but he has a body of dharma that is so strong that Xiego only feels that he is coming towards him. Breath. Could this person have just returned from a Western Buddhist country? Song Su and his party were even more shocked. How could it be Li Shixing from the Li family in Fulu Street, Liz Hudong? In fact, it was surprising enough that they learned earlier that Li Hisung was invited to participate in the three-religion debate. Among the younger generation of Lizhu Dongtian, Li Shixing is a very inconspicuous existence. Regarding this person, there are only a few simple entries in the Dali Punishment Department's file. Xiu Chaojun had a fight. Li Shixing also painted talismans on the mangosteen. However, there is no record of the outcome of the battle, or the effect of drawing the talisman on the bamboo. Fortunately in time. Li Shixing wanted to look at the two groups of people who arrived earlier than him and said with a smile, this thing is implicated in my sister Dao, whether it is seniors who rely on excellent swordsmanship to force open the iron box or you guys. I don't think it's particularly safe to use an ancient bottle that Mr. Yuan of the Qintian superintendent personally imitated to load the sun. Before that, I'm afraid I need to make a cut. Xiego grinned and said, listen, if it's you, you will be safe? Li Shixing nodded and said, I know a few talismans which just happen to come in handy. Xiego started to laugh silly and held up his mink hat. This time he was really a little angry. The only thing she can't see is that others show off in front of her and compare her talent for cultivation? Li Shixing explained with a smile. Senior, don't misunderstand, I just came here to ensure that I have no coveted heart for this thing. When I open the box, I will tame the golden crow so that it will not lead to a continent. Sheikh, you can sit down and discuss and decide on the ownership of this thing. Song Su took the lead in showing goodwill to Li Shixing. Song Su, I have met Mr. Li. The girl grinned and introduced herself. Ma Do Yu. Zhurong Rinshi, temporarily serving as the capital Dailu, Guling, student from the Old Cliff, Lu Hui. Qingtan Blessed Land, Hanzhou Jin. The little monk folded his hands together and said with a sullen face, Beijing Scripture Translation Bureau, I realized later. I don't have the full ordination yet. Li Shixing bowed back with the crowd, smiled and said, Li Shixing, Longquan County, is Li Baoping's eldest brother. Xiego asked tentatively, "How long have you been returning from the Western Buddhist country? A month or a few days?" Li Shixing said in his heart, "I just came here from Xishan Wuxia Temple." If he hadn't noticed the vision here, Li Shixing wouldn't have returned to Howren World so quickly, and the first thing he did when he returned to Howren World would be to go to Baidi City. Xiego was skeptical about this. "Do you think you are the 14 realms?" After Lin Shui left Changchun Palace, he first followed Yuan Huajing to the capital. In fact, he did not need to go to the Ministry of Punishment to record the matter of breaking through and becoming Jade Pu, but Lin Shui had always had a good relationship with the Dali court. Otherwise, he would not have agreed to serve as the Chidu Temple Blessing. But Lin Shui abides by the rules everywhere and behaves in a flawless manner. When the Ministry of Punishment points Mao, it is all congratulations. After that, Lin Shui Yufeng went to Hangzhou Logging Institute. The Logging Institute has nothing to do now. Lin Jingqing is sitting in the desolate public office. The officials are not allowed to drink alcohol while they are on duty. There are only a few dishes of salted peanuts and other side dishes on the table. Seeing Lin Shui, the man didn't say anything. Just dropped a peanut and chewed it in his mouth. Lin Shui took out a few jars of Changchun Palace Immortal Brew from his sleeve and put them on the table, saying that it was sent by the elder Song Yu. In the future, if he wants to drink this kind of wine, he only needs to say hello to Changchun Palace and then it will be sent directly to the logging house, and the money for the drink will be charged to Lin Shui's account. Lin Jingqing glanced at the pot of rare immortal brew that was hard to find on Beiping's mountain, and he didn't appreciate it. Lin Shui smiled and said, "I heard that Dad's boss, Fu Hu at the Beijing news office, is now the county magistrate in Pingnan County, and he can be sent to him." Lin Jingqing thought about it, but he did not refuse. Fu Hu was able to be an official and serve as the head of Xianxia County, of course, because he greeted the two officers of the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Rights. He directly helped Fu Hu with a few good words, and the Dali court heard the sympathy and gave Fu Hu a real shortage. When it comes to the art of knowing people, Lin Jingqing is of course extremely skilled, otherwise how can he be the savior of Lizhu Cave? Lin Jingqing raised his chin toward the door and Lin Shou understood it. Father was about to prepare a few drinks, so he waved his sleeves and closed the door. Lin Jingqing frowned slightly and Lin Shui immediately looked embarrassed. Lin Jingqing didn't even talk about his reasons for being a human being. He tapped lightly on the table with one finger, and Lin Shui started to take out the wine glass and took the initiative to get up to pour the wine. Lin Jingqing took a sip of his drink, thought for a moment and said, "It's Jade Pure Realm, which means you have crossed a big threshold. You are in your 40s this year and you are not young. You are sitting in the market at the foot of the mountain. I have a granddaughter and there are some things that I should talk to you about opening the skylight." Lin Shui drank his courage and said with a smile, "Dad, don't be vague about being in your 40s. Do you know my exact age?" Lin Jingqing thought about it and asked, "How old are you then, Qin Pingon?" Lin Shou was doubly aggrieved and dared to love your father. "You only remember the age of Qin Pingon, but not the age of your own son," and smiled bitterly. "Dad, am I really your own son?" Lin Jingqing said indifferently, "You have to ask your mother about this kind of thing. I'm not sure." Lin Shui was suffocated, stretched out his arms, twisted a peanut and threw it into his mouth and began to drink sullenly. Lin Jingqing pushed a plate of dried bamboo shoots beside him towards Lin Shui and said, "Lu Qin came here to find me at the end of last year and chatted with me about old sesame seeds and rotten millet. He felt that I caused you to lose a great opportunity, and that many of the benefits that should belong to you were invisibly passed on to Qin Pingon. Lu Chen's can't be believed completely or not, you can listen to half of it." Lin Shui asked, "Father, can you tell me in detail?" Lin Jingqing took a sip of wine, waved his hand and signaled that he should pour the wine, and then told Lin Shui some old Huangli and the inside story. Lin Shui thought about it carefully. "Even if I had known that there was such a gambling table, I would definitely not be able to compete with Qin Pingon because I am not tough enough. Apart from reading books and cultivating by myself, I will treat anyone by myself. Things are too lazy and not motivated at all. Besides, if I knew this earlier, unless I guessed it myself, no matter who leaked the secret with me, it would be equivalent to directly disqualifying and will automatically leave the gaming table. So you don't have to think about it, Dad, let alone have any worries about it. I think life is the best now. What's more, the matter of numerology and chance is so complicated and unpredictable, especially when we set foot in the practice, a long river of time with countless reverse currents back and forks. Go more. In the final analysis, in this fight that our generation has been kept in the dark, we all have to recognize whether we win or lose. Don't ask for nothing outside of your heart. Looking at Lin Shi's clear eyes and his graceful bearing on his son's side, Lin Jingqing rarely had a soft expression on his face, but he quickly restrained himself and asked, "How did you tell Qin Pingon?" Lin Shi said, "I asked him to come here for New Year's greetings." "Xianxia, you are not shallow." Lin Jingqing raised his head and frowned. As soon as he saw his father's sullen expression, Lin Shi felt subconsciously in his heart. Can be seen that Lin Jingqing is a father with great power. Lin Shi thought about it and said with a bit of a scalp, "I am here. In the letter I told Qin Pingan that you can come here for New Year's greetings. I think that Qin Pingan's talent and intelligence are enough to explain the problem." Lin Jingqing smiled and said, "It's can not must? You are a scholar, you are very good at choosing words and sentences." So Lin Jingqing took the initiative to raise his glass. "Am not allowed to make a toast to the seeds of reading? When I go to the imperial examinations and go home after the exam, I will set off firecrackers at the door in person." Lin Shi raised the wine glass, lowered it, bumped it lightly, and before drinking he said aggrieved, "Father, can you stop talking like this in the future?" Lin Jingqing took a sip of his wine. Is this a father teaching his son to be a man? Lin Shi was speechless again, poured himself a glass of wine, raised his head and sighed. Lin Jingqing said, "I'm not joking with you about participating in the imperial examinations of the Great Li dynasty. A champion in his 40s is not too old. Even if he doesn't pass the exam, as long as he is in the top 3 or he is in the top 2, it will do." Lin Shi said strangely, "Dad, you are not the kind of person who is addicted to officials. Why did you come to my side? So you want to hang a plaque of Jinsher and D in the ancestral hall at home? There is surplus grain at home and the pigs can eat enough. There are many books and grandchildren, and it is a blessing to be eager to learn." Lin Jingqing said, "I only hope that my stupid child will be free from illness and disaster to the minister, and the great wealth and honor will also be tested for longevity." The weather is getting calmer. Magnolia blossoms in the courtyard outside the door. In the southern part of Aquarius Island, where the country has been restored and established, a new Yunshao dynasty has emerged on the territory of the old Dashuang dynasty that was torn apart, occupying nearly half of the old mountains and rivers, and became one of the most powerful countries in the south of Aquarius. The only fly in the ointment is that the Yunshao Hong clan failed to win over the Lingfei view of the immortal Lord Chao Rong. The current Taoist temple is called Dongting. A new battlefield site has been opened as a Taoist temple on the border between the two countries outside the Taoist temple. It is rumored that this Taoist true monarch is good at congratulating speeches, and he is trained in Liujia Taoism and holds a green jade in his hand. A talisman that can command the Yin soldiers to be warriors who can be driven. On the northeastern border of the Yunshao dynasty, there is a lofty mountain that is inaccessible to people. Since ancient times, no cultivator has opened a cave here. Hu Feng and Wu Tijing, two young sword cultivators who met, officially established the mountain here. The so-called ceremony is to set off a few strings of firecrackers and set up a table of wine and food. But it is such a thin area of spiritual energy, such a hilltop that can barely open a dojo, has been approached by a group of Yunshao Hong clan masters, threatening that this place is one of the sources of a river that was sealed by the imperial court. As a rule, you need to take the two of them to the capital together. You have to file a file with the Ministry of Rights, write down your name, place of origin, and teacher's inheritance. The court has checked your identity and qualifications before you can formally set up a faction. In the future, you will have to pay rent with the court every year. In short, it was a lot of red tape, and when I heard Wu Tijing was about to slash people with a sword. As a result, as soon as the other party heard that Hu Feng was from Longquan County, Chuzhou of the Dali dynasty, the attitude of the Hong family's court and local officials immediately reversed 180 degrees. Not only did not continue to pester Hu Feng, but he took the initiative to ask the two immortal masters from other places whether they needed them to ask the nearby prefectural government office to help put up a bulletin notice and issue a mountain ban, so as to prevent the mountain woodcutter, the herb collector, and the like. ladies strayed into this place and disturbed the cultivation of the two immortal masters. After that, an official from the Ministry of Rites came to visit, and was accompanied by an elderly cultivator who had traveled to the old Longzhou territory. He found Hu Feng and chatted a few words carefully. In fact, it was to verify Hu Feng's identity as a great Li. Seeing that Hu Feng mentioned the local customs of his hometown without any mistake, he did not dare to ask more questions and quickly returned to his home, which was enough to communicate with the imperial court. At the foot of the mountain, watching the other party leave, Wu Tijing asked, "Aren't they too troublesome? Just ask Dali Chuzhou if you don't. Is there a person named Hu Feng on Erlang Lane? Little things that can be determined with a letter." Hu Feng shook his head and said, "They don't dare to trouble the Dali court because of such a trivial matter. Besides, the southern countries of Aquarius Island are most afraid of Dallas Punishment Department's sticky man coming to the door." Wu Tijing said with a smile. "Looking at the posture, the Hong family in Yunshao can't wait to offer you up. Listening to what they say, if we nod our heads we can be worshipped by the royal family. Is your Dali status so precious?" Hu Feng said indifferently, "It's just a matter of the past few decades. It was not the case before. The immortal masters on the mountain and the descendants of the mountain were very servile to the Lu dynasty and the Gao clan of the Great Sui dynasty. The Li Tiechi annexed the Lu dynasty, but there are still many literati who still worship other countries, like to hold stinky feet, and when looking at the domestic situation they pick on everything. People who are standing like to kneel and talk. When Cui Yu was the national teacher he didn't care about it. How bad?" Wu Tijing thought it was interesting. "Is it better now?" Guosher Cui is very knowledgeable and has a lot of work. It is estimated that he can't take care of these things, or he may be too lazy to care about it. It is estimated that Guosher Cui has never regarded them as scholars in his heart. Hu Feng nodded. "These literati have changed their tongues now. They compete with each other for ingenuity. How can we ordinary people compare to those who have read books?" Reclimbing, the two swordsmen chatted while walking. Hu Feng, who was dressed in shabby sackcloth and straw sandals all year round, had a strong stature. In fact, he was in his 40s. Always with a dull face and blank eyes. But that Wu Tijing, whose real age was less than 20 years old, was handsome and very immortal, wearing a blue robe, a purple jade crown on his head and a white jade belt around his waist. Because Hu Feng was worried that he would reveal his whereabouts and cause unnecessary entanglement, he asked Wu Tijing to use a pseudonym to prevent Xianxia from following the news all the way. One of the Dragon Gate realm and the other of the Golden Core realm, both sides concealed the identity of the sword cultivator. Although in the realm of the two of them, in this Yunshao dynasty where the national teacher is only a nascent soul realm, it is no problem to walk sideways down the mountain, but be careful to sail the ship of 10,000 years. There are many old sayings in the town. For example, if you walk too much at night you will encounter ghosts. Another example is that a person who is unlucky may turn around and pick up gold from the dung heap. Wu Tijing is a person who is extremely confident to the point of being conceited, while Hu Feng is a person with a soft personality and gentle words. Nowadays there are only two people in the sect. One is the head and the other is the master. Chatting and chatting we talked about sect affairs. Today Hu Feng is similar to a broken-mouthed auntie. He babbled over there, saying that when Wu Tijing left Jingyang Mountain he should bring some fairy money. So alone it's like going out of the house without a wallet. Wu Tijing was agitated. He raised his voice and said, "Hu Feng, are you bothered? Why do you keep mentioning this kind of thing?" Hu Feng ignored Wu Tijing, who suddenly became irritable, and said slowly, "It's hard for a clever woman to cook without rice, and a penny beats a hero. Now what is the situation of our sect? Do you need me to say more?" The sect master said to himself, "Anyway, in the future if there is another cultivator of genealogy similar to you in our sect, and I don't want to stay, I will give him a money bag or a few pieces of Guyu money." Wu Tijing clasped the back of his head with both hands. "In the cave there are treasures everywhere. Just pick up a few and sell them and you'll have everything. Where do you need to be like now, two poor staring at each other?" Hu Feng shook his head and said, "I set a rule for myself that nothing in the cicada's slough can be taken out." Hu Feng turned his head and said, "If you like it, Cicada Slough will send it to you, but you have to promise me that you will abide by this rule before you enter the 5 realms." Wu Tijing waved his hand and let it go. He got a dragon-slaying stone from Hu Feng, which has already made this genius swordsman feel uneasy, and joked, Hu Feng, are you considered poor and generous? Hu Feng must be sincerely willing to give away a cave, not to test people's hearts. But Wu Tijing will definitely not accept it, he doesn't like to owe favors. Hu Feng's ancestral home is located in Erlang Lane. Nowadays, the entire Beipingzu is amazed that the Mud Bottle Lane is a golden jade dojo with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. In fact, Xinghua Lane and Erlang Lane are not bad, but Fulu Street and Intaoya Lane, it seems that for the time being, there is only Zhao Yao, the servant of the punishment department, and Xieling of Longquan sword sect. Hu Feng has been walking around the streets with his grandfather, who opened a wedding shop since he was a child, helping to mend pots and pans and sharpen kitchen knives. Later, the sky of Liju Cave fell to the ground and the sky changed. Hu Feng followed the people of the town and rushed to the Longshu River. He picked up 8 beautiful stones and sold them to 2 families in Fulu Street and Taoya Lane. I got 2 large sums of money, and then I bought some houses in the state city with some of the money. Before I left my hometown, I asked that guy named Dong Shuijing to help rent it out. Then a part of the silver is handed over to Dong Shuijing, which is considered as a partnership. If you lose money, it will be a waste. If you make money, it will be used as the principal of the next transaction. Regardless of. When they were very young, they knew each other very well, but they were not friends at first. He and Dong Shuijing both came from a small town, but because they had elders to rely on, their life was not too difficult. At that time, they both liked to go to Lao Xiai Mountain to scavenge and pick up, and they often met. Dong Shuijing likes to choose those broken pieces of porcelain with words, and Hu Feng likes pictures. In the first few years, the 2 sides did not speak. Later, Dong Shuijing was the first to speak. The 2 children hit it off and they had a tacit understanding. Every sunset before they went down to the porcelain mountain, got together and bartered. In this way, the 2 gained significantly more. Every time Hu Feng thinks about it now, he will sincerely admire Dong Shuijing's business experience. He seems to have some skills. Every year on February 2nd, Grandpa would take Hu Feng to go to the immortal tomb to kowtow. After leaving his hometown on this day, Hu Feng will also face the direction of his hometown and respect the 3 sticks of incense from a distance. This is something that Grandpa explained, and Hu Feng dare not forget it. Wu Tijing asked, "Have you figured out how to repay Li Huai?" Hu Feng shook his head and said, "I haven't thought about it for a while." Wu Tijing suddenly said, "Would you like to contact Dong Shuijing?" Hu Feng wondered, "Didn't you always say that you don't ask for help?" If it wasn't for taking care of Wu Tijing's self-esteem and feelings, Hu Feng actually had this consideration. The 2 sides are from the same town, they know the bottom line, and they have done business at a young age, so they can trust each other. Wu Tijing said with a smile, "I'm an extraordinary swordsman prodigy, a genius among geniuses, but I don't have the ability to turn a stone into gold. I don't have money in my pocket, I can't speak, no matter how loud my voice is, no one will listen. Superficial, I'm not a fool, how can I not understand? Besides, it's just a partnership to do business and it's not asking for help." Hu Feng smiled and didn't say anything. In fact, it was Wu Tijing who wanted to be a little bit more sectarian after he became the chief law officer, but found that it was really impossible to have no money. A martial art can't have only a few thatched huts. Hu Feng could have used this material to build a mansion with his own hands. The problem was that the 2 of them, cultivators, lived in this. Wouldn't it be more funny than living in a thatched hut? Wu Tijing glanced at the bamboo flute pinned to Hu Feng's waist. "Is it left to you by your grandfather?" Hu Feng shook his head. "Grandpa asked for it for me in the early years." In the capital of Dali, Zhao Yao, the servant of the Ministry of Punishment, was in the Changpu River and invited several brothers, who were studying in the old Xianxia Academy, which has now been renamed Chunshan Academy. A discussion was held in the Dasui Xianxia Academy. In addition to the 3 chief and deputy mountain chiefs, there were several gentlemen and sages. Li Huai was able to join it and he was quite restless. On the banks of Tongyi's Hao Rin River, Yu Lu restored his real name and joined hands with his classmates to thank him. In the territory of Yenzhou Prefecture in Yunzhou there is a rural school. The teacher is a foreigner whose surname is Chen. This spring the mountains are in full bloom. Sword of Coming Chapter 1000. Yenzhou Prefecture, Suian County. The moon is like a hook and the wild geese return to the south. Dressed in a blue shirt and long coat, walking on a moonlit night, walking on a stone arch bridge followed by a young man with steady steps. It is Qin Pingon and his disciple Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian stomped his feet lightly, and the stone bridge was the same except that it was sturdy. He asked, "Master, is there a reason for this bridge's name so big?" It turned out that the arch bridge across the river at the foot of the two was named Wanyan Bridge. The gurgling Wu stream emerges from the mountain. The village name is Lingjiao, and the natives call themselves the Source, which is very worthy of the name. Qin Pingon nibbled the melon seeds, shook his head and smiled and said, "I checked, but unfortunately there is no clear record in the local chronicles of the prefecture and county. Most of them were built by local sages in the early years. As for why it was named Wanyan Bridge, the old people here do not know. Can be checked." According to the text on the tombstone on the tomb of the village, the Junwang family from an ancient country at the northernmost tip of Aquarius moved here about 700 or 800 years ago. This Wuxia is one of the sources of the Ximei River. In fact, the Longxi River on the other side of my hometown was called Wuxia in ancient times, and the matter of fate is wonderful. Suian County is located at the junction of Yenzhou and Yunzhou, and the Ximei River is the largest river in Yunzhou, originating from Yenzhou Prefecture, but there has never been a river named by the court before. Zhao Xuxia gathered his voice and said in secret, "Master, I heard that the Dali court found the entrance to the ancient Shulong Palace ruins in a certain section of Wuxia a few years ago?" Qin Pingon nodded, walked down the arch bridge and walked downstream along the stone road by the stream. Looking back, there was nothing under the bridge. It's a small inland dragon palace and its rank is not high, but it has never been seen in history. Qi practitioners have been involved in it, so no one has touched the treasures in it. According to the preliminary calculations of the Ministry of Households, it is equivalent to the tax revenue of several rich and large states in Dali, which is quite considerable. The key is an old dragon palace. If Dali, the imperial court, operates properly, in addition to the orderly mining of many natural treasures, immortal herbs, and some rare minerals, there can be a large amount of continuous income of immortal money. In addition, only the monks of the water law and the aquarium spirits have opened up the dojo. The annual rent paid to the household department should not be underestimated. It can be described as a cornucopia. Now Zimehi has welcomed the first Jianghe Jingshan in history, the servant of the Dali ritual department and Huang Tingwo's minister of rites, and jointly abbot the ceremony. The first water of the Ximei River, Gaojiu, was once the water of the Taiku River. A brand new shrine was erected and it was completed in less than a month. They are also from the famous scholars of Huang Tingwo's literary circles. Along this Wuxi River, there are 3 villages built along the water, only 2 or 3 miles apart from each other. The largest village, located in the most downstream, has 200 households. It is called Wuxi Village. It is one of the largest villages in Suian County. In history there has been a Juran, but they are all the status of the previous dynasty. Today Dali. In the dynasty, let alone the kind of Jinsher master who went down to the world with Wenkuxing, if he succeeded in the examination he could be called a glorious ancestor, and the county magistrate would personally come to the door to congratulate him. As a result, in the village at the top of Wuxi, a new private school was opened this year, and the Mongolian school opened. On the opening day, a firecracker was set off, and the sound of the sky was so loud that the 2 villages below could hear it. Is a foreigner surnamed Qin Mingji. I don't know where it came from. Qinji Ba, listening to this name, he is a bum, definitely not the kind of scholar who came from a scholarly family. Zhao Xuxia smiled and asked, "Sir, you are good at looking for qi and kanyu. Can you talk about the feng shui of these 3 villages?" After eating the melon seeds, Qin Pingon clapped his hands and couldn't help laughing. It's not for the sake of eating, setting up stalls and cheating money, and even a little knowledge of fur is not enough. Just read a few miscellaneous books on geography. How dare you do it casually? See. Just when they passed the village in the middle, Qin Pingon pointed to one of the calls and said, "Anyway, there are no outsiders, so I'll just follow the script and tell you a few words. According to the situation school, have you seen them? There are 3 small hills above the kernel. The mountain buns are shaped like 3 umbrellas. If there is no such call, it will be discouraged, like an umbrella without a handle which cannot be supported. Otherwise, this small village will be able to produce high officials. Among the 3 villages, this place is the most literary. It's easier to get the seeds of reading." Qin Pingon pointed to an alley in the village again. A village is a different situation and the culture is on the left. Unfortunately, now the village's Meng children are going to Wuxia village school to study, but they can't gather their energy and read the seeds. If you want to become a good candidate, it is estimated that in the future, the village will open a school by itself, or simply go to Yenzhou to study. The small village schools in Yenzhou Prefecture are generally like Wuxia village. The clan village ancestral hall donates money, and then opens up a few acres of school fields, and hires teachers to open schools to set up schools. In this way, children from poor families can also learn to read and write. The children are a little older and have a little energy, and most of them will drop out of school and go to the fields with their elders to work in the fields. But if there are really good seedlings who study, according to the new regulations promulgated by Dali a few years ago, the county government will select the best students and teach them in person, and the county government will subsidize the village and family a sum of money every year, just from the previous one. Being an official can make money and becoming a student can make money. Walking to the entrance of Wuxia village, Qin Pingon turned back on the same road. Wuxia village hired an old boy from the county town to serve as the teacher of the clan school. Said there is also a table of wine in the county town. There is no age limit for Mengtong to enter school. The youngest is 5 or 6 years old. There are too many students and one teacher alone cannot handle it, so there are 2 local teachers from Wuxia village. Although the old gentleman is only a child who has participated in a few college exams, strictly speaking there are 2 teachers. Not even a talented person, but for a rural school located in a remote country, it is not easy to have this kind of treatment. The night was cool and Qin Pingon was walking on the yellow mud road by the river, chanting and talking to himself there. On the right is the shallow Wuxia, the moonlight is flowing on the water, there are bamboo forests on the mountain, mixed with cypress, locust and tea fields, and the blossoms in the fields along the way on the left are blooming golden. Zhou Xian listened to Master's subtle voice. In fact, he still didn't quite understand why Master was so concerned about the opening of the school. Master's newly opened small village school at the source. Now there are less than 10 Meng children in total, not to mention Master's personality and work habits. He will definitely not give up halfway, which means that at least 2 or 3 years, Master will devote himself to the mountain. The precious time of cultivating the Tao was handed over to a new school with no name. Zhou Xian didn't think there was anything wrong with this behavior, just puzzled. Most of the Mingxue books for entry are the 300,000s that pass through the vast 9 continents. Mengtong shook his head with his masters in the school, first memorized them by rote, and then the teacher explained the meaning of the words word by word and then taught the 4 books, etc. The children roughly explained the meaning of the text, and then talked about the 5 classics, and some classic ancient texts selected by the official schools of various countries. Mengtong's writing and poetry writing all the way there is a sequence, but for the rural school the focus and foundation are still calligraphy classes. Qin Pingon wrote more than 1,000 regular characters in his own hand, and wrote more than 1,000 exegesis-like explanations and interpretations to match those square characters. In addition, Qin Pingon also cut, deleted and transcribed. Several copies are from Li Shilong's double rhyme. The night ship that Qin Pingon boarded contained an entry city, and the city owner was the Li Shilang, who was praised as an all-rounder by the mountains. Qin Pingon has long admired Li Shilang, whose name is Xianlu and No. Suan, but it was the first time that the 2 sides actually met on the night cruise. Door to door, street to street. The day is long, the homeland is opposite to the other country. The Qingshu Palace on the ground, the Guanghan Palace in the sky. Master the 5 sacred talisman, the sword and the 7-star pattern on the waist. Huai against the willow, juniper against the regular, cook early chives, cut spring celery. Yellow dogs against Qinghuan, water pools against mountain cliffs. Double-hanging white jade chopsticks at the foot of the mountain, Xinjia Zhizhuan Zijindan. When Qin Pingon traveled alone he often recited this. Later, when he left the lotus flower-blessed land, there was a little black charcoal beside him. Qin Pingon was afraid that she would feel that copying books every day would be boring, and she would slack off because it was too boring, and then she felt disgusted with reading. I became rebellious, so whenever I was on the night road in Tongyi's Hao, I taught Pei Qian some judges, to strengthen courage. Because of the rhyme it was very smooth to carry. Pei Qian probably thought that he was just talking and couldn't spend it. With a few ounces of strength, she has a good memory and she quickly memorized it by heart. When walking together at night, Xiao Haitan swaggered loudly and had a clear voice, like Huang Ying's twittering. At that time, Pei Qin might have memorized things perfunctory, but Qin Pingon on the side was really pleasant to hear and in a peaceful mood. Under the tree, is it more appropriate to delete the content behind mastering the magic talisman and Xianxia under the mountain? After all, it is the content of learning, and it seems that it is not appropriate to come into contact with these mysterious fairy words too early. Zhou Xian said, Master, I don't think it's a big problem. Anyway, I've heard of mountain ghosts since I was a child. The rumors of water monkeys and fox spirits may be the same as this magic talisman, Zijindan or something. Qin Pingon nodded, then I'll think about it. Zhou Xian has been rehearsing the 6-step pile walking along the way with the pole-standing sword stove. Every day when he sleeps on the pile for a long time and his lying posture is particular. I used to practice boxing on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building. In fact, I didn't need the master to speak. Zhou Xian himself realized a huge problem. Shaking the mountain was fine, but the iron cavalry formed the formation, the clouds steamed the lake, the gods beat the drums. These senior CS unique skills, it seems that the master and the senior sister are extremely familiar with the boxing moves. Zhou Xian learns it so slowly that Zhou Xian himself is a little embarrassed. Qin Pingon suddenly said, When I traveled to Luzhou in Beiju, I was fortunate to meet the editor of the Shaking Mountain Boxing Manual, the martial artist of the Dezhuan dynasty and the old senior Gu Yogu. At that time he did not report his identity and the two sides were far apart. When we met on a narrow road, Senior Gu wanted to ask me about boxing without any warning. It was only later that I learned that the original intention of this senior was to weigh up the essence of what I learned about boxing. As for the process and results of asking boxing, there is no point. As I said, I barely caught it and I didn't disappoint the seniors too much. After that, I walked with Senior Gu for a while, and the seniors started to look at me with admiration just because of one thing. Zhou Xian asked curiously, Is the master practicing boxing diligently? Qin Pingon shook his head and said, No, the word diligence is rather confusing. Practicing live boxing is magical and practicing dead boxing is empty, but both are considered diligent. Especially in Weijiaquan, they often invite gods to fight against ghosts, and Mrs. Pure Wu fell into a disease in middle age. Senior Gu was chatting with me about boxing manuals and about the heaven and earth piles in it. I will give my own opinion, right? It is possible to combine the 6-step walking pile, the sword stove standing pile and the heaven and earth pile into one. Although Senior Gu deliberately kept his calm expression at that time, he still couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. Zhou Xian wondered, Master, what do you say? Can I learn? Qin Pingon raised his face, nodded and said, Of course you can learn it. The teacher has said it so clearly, but you haven't figured out the joints? Under the tree, the aptitude is not good and the understanding is not enough. Qin Pingon saw that the other party was still confused, so he stretched out a palm and turned it gently. Zhou Xian thought about it carefully, hesitated again and nodded his head, so it was. I saw Zhao Shu squatting and punching next, head and feet upside down, one hand on the ground, then one hand pinching the sword stove, and then with the boxing formula of Tiandizwan, the Jinqi circulates the veins of the bones, bumps and jumps in 6 steps. Qin Pingon held back his smile. If the standing sword stove is replaced with one hand, the taste will not be right. You might as well try walking with your head on the ground and your head instead of your left hand. It's a bit difficult for beginners, but as time goes by, you will know that it has infinite benefits. Zhou Xian really tried it according to what the master said. Passing by the village in the middle, someone happened to be walking at night on the road. Qin Pingon quickly kicked over Zhao Shu and said with a low voice, Don't get involved with master and be treated as a fool. Zhao Xian stood up, patted his head and covered with dust, his face full of helplessness. Qin Pingon took out a handful of melon seeds from his sleeve, gave half of them to Zhao Shu, nibbled the melon seeds and said with a smile, The earliest on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building, when Senior Cui mentioned the Shaking Mountain Boxing Manual, his words were full of disdain. What an earthy smell! The moves contained in the boxing manual are really sparse, and I am not afraid to flash my tongue when speaking. Later when I met Senior Gu, he said that Senior Cui was not good enough to teach boxing, so he would teach me to make sure that I would break through with the strongest. Zhou Xian listened to these extremely precious jianghu. Although the master said it lightly, even a little witty, but Zhou Xian was fascinated by it. Zhou Xian had no reason to think of the opening of the preface of the boxing manual, so he asked curiously, "Have you seen the patriarch of the three sects?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "The most holy master and Daozu have both met and chatted." Zhao Xian didn't ask any more questions. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "There is nothing taboo. The most holy teacher is a burly scholar, and my first impression at that time was, at first glance he has been in the rivers and lakes. Different, in fact it looks like a young Taoist boy." Zhao Xian smiled and asked, "Master, has he seen a lot of martial artists?" Qin Pingon thought for a while. "If you leave out those acquaintances who meet and nod at a distance, it's actually not too much, no more than a pair of hands." Qin Pingon raised his chin to the bamboo forest on the other side of the creek and reminded, "Under the tree, go see this wild bamboo forest to see if there are yellow mud arches, and I will show you a cooking skill when you look back. The dishes you fried are really not good. To be honest, it is edible." Zhao Xian saw that there was no one around, and with a little toes he swept across the stream, went to the bamboo forest to find spring bamboo shoots, and quickly returned with a bag of yellow mud arches. Qin Pingon was not idle either. He went to the field to pick a large handful of wild amaranth and a handful of wild green onions. It is a must-have for stir-frying spicy sauce as a side dish. Walking back to the source village together, Qin Pingon smiled and said, "It's strange, stinky mandarin fish is delicious, but the dish of braised bamboo shoots in oil is always uneatable." Zhao Xian said, "Master, braised bamboo shoots in oil are delicious, but am not used to scrambled eggs with tune. After burning the mountain, the bracken will inevitably grow vigorously in the coming year, but it is not yet time, and it must be picked in the mountains before and after the Qingming festival." Back at the village school, Zhao Xian smiled and said, Master Feng and Mr. Han from Wuxia village, it is estimated that they will come to trouble you in the near future." Qin Pingon shook his sleeves, smiled and said, "Let them, just let the horses come over, fight poems, right pair, there is really no stage fright for the teacher. In this humble village school, there is only one yellow mud hut as a school, plus 2 thatched huts. One is used by the teacher for rest, and the other is used as a stove and piles of sundries." Zhao Xian built a floor on the kitchen side. Qin Pingon originally intended that both the master and the apprentice would live in the same room, but Zhao Xian refused, saying that he had a relationship with the kitchen since he was a child. The yellow mud hut has been in existence for a long time, and it has been unoccupied for a long time. It was rented and the 2 small thatched huts were newly built. The school temporarily took in 8 Mongolian children, most of them still wearing open-crotch pants. The school can be run. When I look at the teacher named Qinji, he is in his 30s. After all, he is not the kind of stunned young man who has no hair on his lips and can't do things well. The master of Jinamo, the second time he came to this person, he was more talkative. Before the opening of the museum, he visited 2 villages and he still knew some rules. Is to charge less money. Compared with the school in Wuxia village, it is nearly half less. Moreover, this gentleman also promised the village that if there is a busy farming season, the children can take vacations, and he can even go to the field to help. In order to grab business, this fellow really doesn't have the slightest bit of shame. Sven sweeps the floor. The 2 masters mentioned by Zhao Xian were an old boy named Feng Yuanting who was hired by Wuxia village school with a lot of money, and the other was a well-known teacher in Suian County. Although he is not famous, he has taught several scholars and he can be regarded as a highly respected village sage. This old Mr. Han is now teaching in the library of the richest family in Wuxia village. Feng Yuanting has always been a little bit in Hanqua. He couldn't raise his head, but only occasionally got together to drink a little wine. When the new school opened at Lingjiao, Feng Yuanting often invited Han Jiao for a drink. "I feel that you can first test the truth before you can see the move." In fact, the so-called military books are romance novels about the history of famous generals in the past dynasties. Han Kuang persuaded him that there was no need to compete with the teacher of a small village school. Since they were traveling together, it was better to be more friendly with each other. Feng Yuanting said that he promised, but in fact he was full of slander. In the matter of face, a scholar doesn't even want his face. What kind of scholar is he still? Every time a Meng boy escapes from his own village school, Feng Yuanting will be slapped in the face, which is unbearable or unbearable. If it weren't for today's regulations, if a private school was set up locally, it would be necessary to file a record with the county government, and the county clerk had to personally inspect the knowledge of the teacher. As it happened, I had to let the surname Qin go around without food. Qin Pingon said, "Under the tree, when you break through, I will teach you a formula for luck. But it may not be suitable for you, so be prepared in advance that you will not be able to learn it." It was that sword energy that stopped 18 times. Zhou Xian nodded, said goodbye to the master, went to the kitchen to build a floor, practiced sleeping for a long time, controlled his breathing and soon fell asleep. When he came here, Zhou Xian gradually discovered a strange thing. He called the master several times, but the master didn't respond. In the end, he had to walk over. Qin Pingon smiled and said something, "Sorry, I didn't hear it just now." After that, Zhou Xian always went to the master before talking about things. This time Qin Pingon he only brought Zhou Xian with him, and directly told Qin Lingjun not to wander around here. Qin Lingjun talked hard, so he asked his master for the precious opportunity to visit the school once a month. This is also due to the help of the old cook. Anyway, the respectful appearance of our ancestor Jingqing as a boy in green clothes is not a pretending to be a child. It was originally, "It is time to read a few more sage books." Zhu Lian smiled and asked Qin Lingjun if he needed a pair of open-crotch pants. Qin Lingjun was too lazy to know the old cook. If his master didn't nod and agree, Qin Lingjun really wanted to go to school for a few days. Qin Pingon returned to his residence, lit an oil lamp on the table, polished his own ink, and began to write a landscape story about the great water monster of Dumb Lake. Compared to that year, I paid more attention to the fan inscription at the Great Wall of Sorchi. There are 3 villages surrounded by mountains, only a stream rushes out along a small road. It is 80 miles away from Suian County. Many local villagers may only visit the county once in their lives. There are azaleas blooming all over the mountains, which is really a veritable azalea. The spring dove chirps, the peach blossoms are light red and apricot blossoms are white, the elm leaves are full of green coins, and the willows by the river are sprouting and the color is golden. Today after the school was over, a guest came. He walked along the Huangni Road, passed through the village of Wuxia and walked all the way to the source. Dressed in an old pedantic attire, it was the new river Gaojiu of Zimehi, who came tremblingly to the top of the mountain. There was no way to do it. The first grade of the official university could crush people to death, not to mention the fact that he was facing a master Qinshan who had 2 sections. With the smoke from the cooking, Gaojiu saw a countrywoman carrying a child in the house, pancakes while the child was pooping. Seeing the chicken dung on the table of the 8 immortals in some common people's homes, the children put out paper kites after school, squatted on the side of the field fighting grass. Their yellow hair was hanging down and they were happy. After Gao Niu walked out of Wuxi village, he turned his head and looked at the small pool at the head of the village. It belonged to the courtyard water. The water surface of the stream was wide so far, but the water outlet was narrow after that. Therefore it was a waterway that could keep wealth fortune. Still very knowledgeable. In ancient times the family had a school and the party had a school, and the technique was ordered and state-owned. Gao Niu patted his chest with one hand and felt a little relieved. Because he wanted to see the young hidden official who was a disciple of Wen Xing. The river master carried several valuable rare books in his arms. Empty hands. Gaojiu caresses his beard and laughs. Every ancient book that has been preserved to this day, if there are ghosts and gods caring for it, my generation does not seek deep understanding when reading, just like eating enough and not getting fat, it is better not to read. Because there is an ancient land dragon palace site in the boundary of Shimei River, which is about to open, so there is a group of dolly cultivators secretly stationed in Suian County, but they all use the identity of businessmen and do not disturb the officials at all levels of Yenzhou Prefecture. However, Mr. Fu Jun of course knew about this, but he had obtained the secret order from the imperial court in advance, and he was not allowed to disclose it. As a newly appointed of mountains and rivers, Gao Niu was not qualified to enter the Dragon Palace. After Gao Niu went to Dianmao twice, he simply didn't go there so as to avoid putting his hot face on his cold and making fun of himself. Seeing Gao Brewery, Qin Pingon took out 2 bamboo chairs and handed one to Gao Brewery. One host and one guest sat under the eaves of the thatched hut. Gao Nyang was sitting upright with a straight waist. When he just put the bamboo chair on, he used Qin Jin, leaned slightly to the hidden official and said carefully, Qin Shanju, but for that dragon palace? Gao Jiao guessed that in order to prevent mistakes, the Dali court invited the hidden officials to sit here in person. Qin Pingon smiled and shook his head. The fact that the imperial court excavated the dragon palace has nothing to do with me, and Dali didn't know that I came here to open a museum and study. Gao Jiao nodded lightly and understood he must not have any superfluous words and deeds. This body practiced in the public sect for dozens of years before his death, and later he lived in the Xiang mansion and his skills were placed there. Gao Jiao took out the books from his arms, handed them to Qin Pingon and said softly, Master Qin Shan, a small gift is not a respect. Having a book is really rich and being without an official is light. This is the only thing Gao is inferior to me. Qin Pingon was not polite, took the book, thanked Gao Niao, patted the book, put it into his sleeve with a smile and said, Brother Gao is not an outsider. This was a bit of a surprise. Gao Brewing was both flattered and embarrassed. After all, it is not easy to find an isolated copy of the same quality as those books, but it is better than attending the night tour banquet of Wei Shanjun in Piyun Mountain. Now this kind of personal friendship, being able to chat face-to-face with a young hidden official alone, is hard to come by. How can it be compared to the kind of noisy night banquet where 200 or 300 guests get together? Not to mention a few, even 30, Gao Brewery is willing to ask someone to borrow money and buy it on credit. Gao Niao looked around and sighed with emotion. Master Qin chose to practice cultivation here, which is really unexpected. The so-called middle-aged masters of ordinary secluded people are quite good at Taoism, and they are nothing more than friends with Songfeng and Shanhua. It's different, do it in the opposite way. Godman is indeed Godman, God is godlike. Qin Pingon has long been accustomed to this bit of flattery and smiled. It's not a practice in the strict sense, it's just teaching in a library. By the way, now I'm a pseudonym Qinji and Brother Gao just calls me by my first name, otherwise once the number of times is too long, it is easy to show the wrongs over time. Gao Niao thought for a while, slapped his knees heavily, made a slap on the table and said solemnly, Okay, this pseudonym is good. Su Ziyuyan, life is like a reverse journey and I am also a pedestrian. Next to the word there is a word. Qin Shanju is a foreigner and it just fits the sentence. I am also a pedestrian. Wonderful. Zhou Xian, who was busy in the kitchen, was stunned when he heard it, and almost mistakenly thought that this Gaohe god was possessed by the old Taoist Jia from the grass head shop. Qin Pingon called Zhou Xian and asked the disciple to get some dried sweet potatoes to entertain guests, and then help to introduce Zhou Xia's identity and personally pass on the disciple. Gao Jiao stood up, took the dried sweet potato from Zhou Xia's hand, and said a few polite words similar to that of a famous teacher and a master apprentice. Zhou Xian also felt that the river seemed to be inferior to the old Jia. Qin Pingon asked casually, Who is the head of the daily cultivator who is looking after the gate of the Dragon Palace? Gao Niao replied, The one who takes the lead on the bright side seems to be a female cultivator of the Fengxue Temple genealogy named Yu Huiting. She has the identity of a cultivator with the army. As for how the imperial court arranges secretly, I don't know for the time being. Qin Pingon nodded and said, According to the sect genealogy, Wei Jin is her uncle from a different line of law. I heard from Xianxia that he trained the female nuns in Changchun Palace, and he met a pretty good woman in the middle of the road. She had a slender waist and a frontier-style war sword with a large iron cavalry. Wearing a narrow-sleeved brocade shirt and black gauze trousers, the most bizarre pair of embroidered shoes on the feet, with 2 longan orbs on the toes. In fact, Miyu said more in detail and Lord Yingguan just listened to it. Gao Ju suddenly said, So it is. It is worthy of being a famous hidden official in the world. In his words he mentioned Wei Dejiangxian of the god of the wind and snow temple, and the titular leader of the kendo of a continent, so he could be so casual. When Gao Jia was full of emotions, Qin Pingon stood up instantly with a solemn expression. Gao Jiao, I'm not entertaining guests, I have something to do, and you immediately run your magical powers back to the water house, hurry up. Gao Niao couldn't figure it out, but he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He quickly used his water magic power, returned to the Shimei River water house along the Wuxia River, and rushed into the golden statue. Qin Pingon took a deep breath, finally came and scolded a dog day carefully. In an instant Qin Pingon seemed to be forcibly dragged into a realm of emptiness beyond the sky. At first sight, it was the majestic dharma of Li Xing that was as big as a star. Then Beta Shengzheng was in the middle, Fu Yushuan, Chunyang Luyen, and even Li Shixing, Xiaomo, and Xiego or Beijing. There was also a young cultivator that Qin Pingon did not know, but he stood behind the ritual and in front of everyone. Sure enough, the wild world is trying to break through the vast world. It's like two flying boats colliding head-on. In this way we must completely cut off the path of the sage to the 15 realms. Xiaomo has already shown his true body in white clothes and said in his heart, "Young master, according to the deduction of Jing Qing, the first choice for the wild world, the first choice used to be Fiazhu followed by our Dalizu, and now it seems to be replaced by Eugene's undersea lair." Bai Jing smiled and said, "Thanks to my steady work I didn't open that box casually." Xing Juzhong said, "It is necessary for the master of Qin Shan to calm down all his mind, and then sacrifice 2 flying swords." Qin Pingon nodded. Li Shixing smiled and said, "I'm here to assist Qin Shanju." You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.